Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of humankind, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom we have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trust in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your present, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. All which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Are there any notices of motions? Honorable Moyo.
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
I rise to move a motion that on Tuesday next week, that this House takes note of the report of the OACPS African region Parliamentary Group and the First Africa EU Parliamentary Assembly at Eswatini from the 7th to the 14th of May. And I also want to give notice that this House takes note of the delegation report of the Portfolio Committee on Women Affairs, Community, Small and Medium Enterprises Development, and the Thematic Committee on Gender Development and on the hard work, on the, sorry, let me take that again. On the benchmark visit to Rwanda, on the progress made on the progress made to promote gender equality and women empowerment, I so move.
Thank you, Honorable Moyo. Any further notices of motions? The clerk will read the first order of the day.
Urgent debate on motion on the second reading of the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Number 3 Bill HB1 of 2026.
Thank you. When this debate was adjourned on the 11th of June 2026, the question before the House was a motion by the Honorable Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs that the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Number 3 Bill HB 1 2026 be now read a second time. Is there any further debate? Honorable James Pass.
Ndinotenda zvikuru Madam Speaker nemukana wamandipa kuti nditaure pamusoro penhaurwa iri mukati meimba ino yakaunzwa negurukota rinoona nezvemutemo Honorable Minister Ziyambi. Ndiri kutaura ndakamiririra vanhu vekuShurugwi North. Vanhu vekuShurugwi North vari kuti ivo indai munotisvitsira kuti seShurugwi North tafarira bhiriri Cape 3 taida yose sezvairi, vari kuti tiri kusapota zvakanyanyisa. Ini zvakare pachangu ndiri kusapota zvine udzamu bhiri irori nezvariri rose. Zvikonzero zvachona mbato wechigaro ndezvekuti izvo ane meso ekuona ngaavone zviri kuitika mukati menyika. Vanhu veShurugwi vari kuti ivo zvikuru takatarisana nenyaya yekuwedzerwa extension yemakore mamwe maviri kuti isvike 7 years. Vari kuti zvikonzero ndezvekuti izvo mhirizhonga kana vanhu vapedza maelections inowanda. Saka nguva pfupi yekukurumidza kudzoka kuelection vanhu vanenge vachakangotsamwirana. Panotsamwirana vanhu nyika idevelopi. Saka tikawedzera kunosvika ku7 years vari kuona sokuti tinodevelopa nyika yedu uyezve zvakare tinochengetedza mari yedu tigogona kusvikavo panosvika dzimwe nyika. Vanhu vokuShurugwi vari kuti ivo vakandipa mufananidzo wavakandipa wenyaya yaiitika kare kuCSC kutengesewa kwaitengesewa nyama. Vakati kune shumo yaitaugwa kunzi Samson nyama inonaka inotaura yoga. Saka hazvibatsiri kubvunza pamusoro pebhiri rakanaka muzvose zvaro zvese iSamson nyama inonaka. Vakati ivo tanga tisina kumbosangana nemapurogiramu akafanana nemadiridziro mumamisha, migwagwa yedu yakunaka neutungamiri huripo. Vakati ivo tiri kutarisa zvakare imo muno muparamende matiri kusure uko vanhu vanga vasingapindiri muno mabasa atinoona neairport yedu. Vakati taakugona kumirawo pane dzimwe nyika. Iyo growth yenyika iri kuratidza kuti tiri kukwirira. Saka panoda mukana mukuru kusvika ku7 years. Ivo vanoti dai zvaibvira tawedzera 5 tisawedzera 2 dzisvike ku10. Ndo zviroto zvavovo nokuti vari kutarisa kudevelopwa kwenyika. Nyaya yabuiswa muno vanditi ivo zvakare ndisvitse shoko iri kuna minista wedu vakapiwa basa nemutungamiri wenyika baba vedu vaMnangagwa vakavapa basa kuti vaite vakaita nomazvo. Vakati ndivapewo vhesi inowanikwa kubva kuna Galatians 6 verse 9 inoti rambai muchiita zvakanaka nguva dzose. So vatiti vasvitse shoko iroro musaneta kuramba muchiita zvakanaka. Zvakawanda zvizhinji takatarisa imwi kuti nyika yedu igotapira. Vari kuti ivo Zimbabwe yotapira. Kana asina meso okuona vabatsirei kuvavonesavo kuti kwatiri kuinda kwakajeka. Vaburitsa futi zvepfungwa iripo yakanangana nekusarudza mutungamiriri mudare rino. Vakati izvo zvakatinakira kugara nakaona dzavamwe. Vari kuti vonaivo zviri kuitwa kunyika dzakatipoteredza. Handichagoni kudzokorodza mashoko akataugwa navamwe. Nyaya yataugwa mavhiki namavhiki. Pfungwa iripo ndeyekutiwo vanhu veShurugwi vati ivo tiri tose pabhiri dai makurumidza mativhara manyanyisa kutaura. Ndo pfungwa yavo. Tinotenda.
Tinotenda Honorable Mpasi Mazvita. Honorable M. Matiza.
Ndinotenda mubati wechigaro nemukana wamandipa. Ini ndinobva kuGokwe. Gokwe yaizikanwa nekutora vasikana vebasa nevafudzi vemombe. Ndiyo yatakamiririra pano. Takaungana kuGokwe. Rekedzai kuti tisu takachibika chinhu ichi. Tinotenda minister nekuuya kuzotitsanangura muno muparliament. Vakatsanangura zvakanaka chose zvekuti asinganzwisise. Bhaibheri soko raMwari rinoti uyo asinganzwe ngaanzwe zvinoreva mweya kureva mukereke. The spirit that reports. So ndinotenda nemukana uno wamandipa semumiririri weGokwe kuti nditsanangure nyaya iyi yebhiri riri pakati pedu. Tichitarira mubati wechigaro 14 February na 4 March 1980 pakaitwa ma-election. Mhandu kana kuti opposition dzakarakashwa dzikabuda dzine 26. Isusu se-government iri kutonga tikabuda tine 57 seats. Opposition imwe chete iyoyo haina kumirira ipapo ikasumuka mumazuva.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
On a point of order, Madam Speaker.
Order, Honorable.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Matiza. Point of order, Honorable Mtea.
Mazita, Honorable Speaker. Ndinofunga Honorable Matiza vanofanira kuti vagadzirise mazwi avo kuti vatakwikwidzana navo mhandu. Izwi iroro harisina kumira zvakanaka. Munomu muimba ineyi hamuna mhandu. Inyaya yekukwikwidzana nenyaya dzesarudzo. Hapana mhandu, hapana muwengi panapa.
Alright, kungoti ndanga ndichisaina bepera ndina kunatsodzwa pavataura kuti manga musingarivere zva 1980.
Ndotenda mubati wechigaro ndanga ndichitaura nhau ye1980 yevanhu vedu vakaurayiwa pachimoiyo zvinotyisa ropa rikadeuka. Ndo vananga ndichitaura nezvavo.
Point of order, Honorable Speaker.
Ipapo dai mapanzwisisa.
Point of order, Honorable
Regai
Speaker.
nditaure mozotaurawo. Ndoda kuedza kuonesai kuti ipapo dai mapanzwisisa nokuti tichibva muhondo chokwadi kwaive nehondo nezvaiitika vanhu vatairwisana navo chibva muhondo dzaive mhando. Hazvisi zveelection yazvino ndezveelection ya1980.
Honorable Speaker, zvamuri kutaura ndiri kuzvinzwisisa uye ndinoramba ndichiremekedza chigaro chenyu. Inini zvehondo handingataurirwi nekuti baba vangu vakatoenda kuhondo. Ndinotozvinzwisisa. Handitaurirwi izvozvo. Haana kutaura zvine chekuita nehondo. Anga achitaura nyaya yesarudzo yakaitika akati mhandu kutaura vanhu vaikwikwidzana in an election well after 1980. But kana muchida kuwachengetedza kuti vataure zvisiri pamurauro zvakanaka.
Vataura kuti takaita 57 seats. Patikaita 57 seats handi muna 1980. Tichikwikwizana nemhandu. Vaitiuraya vai.
On a point of privilege, Madam Speaker. On a point of privilege.
And I'm very.
Maita basa mubati wechigaro. Election ra 1980 rakanga rine mapato akasiyana siyana. Mamwe anosanganisirawo ZAPU yaiva iripo yakarwa hondo. Zvino tikati isusu opposition ya 1980 dzaiva mhandu. Kureva here kuti ZAPU dzaiva mhandu. Tinotenda.
Speaker, Madam Speaker, maybe a little bit of history to them they will understand. ZAP and ZANU just agreed to go into the election separately, but one with the one manifesto. So they were one. What we say in an election year 1980, we won 77 seats. He may just be looking at ZANU, but we were one, ZAPU and ZANU. We had one manifesto.
ichokwadi kuti election ya 1980 taikwikwidzana nemhandu. Election ya 1980 endererai mberi.
Ndinotenda nokundimirira mubati wechigaro. Ndinonzwa kudzirwa. Sezvandataura zvatakawirirana nevanhu vokumusha kwangu kugoko, takatenderana kuti izvo parliament ngainge ine simba rekusarudza mutungamiriri wenyika. Kechitu tikatenderana zvakare kuti ngapawedzerwe mamwe makore 2 pamusoro pe5 kubva kumutungamiriri wenyika kuvasarudzi veparliamende uyezve nemakanzuro. Bill number 3 harina kunakira isu chete, rakanakira nyika yedu kuti kudzikama kuvepo munyika uye tiwane nguva yakakura yekushanda. Hakuna kiti yakangwara inodya gonzo rine nhumbu. Panapa takagarira business. Kana chiti government business, it's all about profit. We don't want losses.
Honorable Matiza, shandisai mutauro mumwe chete.
All right, thank you. Regedzai ndidzokorere zvekare. Hakuna kiti yakangwara inodya gonzo rine nhumbu. Ndichizama kureva kuti chinhu ichi chavinga kuti bill iri ravinga kuti tisimudzirike tese tive nemukana wekushanda. Chikumbiro changu chandiri kukumbira kunyika yeZimbabwe kuti dai takurumbidza taregedza kupedza nguva tichitaura muno, asi bhiri iri rangopasiswa nekukasika. Ndakamirira vana vangu vasikana, handikapikisani navo, asi ndinovatsigira pagender commission kuti ngairambe iripo. Hatina dzimwe nyaya dzatingataure muno kunze kwokutsigira bhiri iri nesimba reduto rose. Ndinokutendai nemukana uno wamandipa. Thank you.
Mazvita Honorable Matiza. Honorable Tinyati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to air my voice on Cape 3. Madam Speaker, I represent the people of Lobengula Magwegwe constituency. The people of Lobengula Magwegwe constituency, Madam Speaker, would want to air their concerns around Cape 3 as follows. Madam Speaker, they say they do not have a problem with Parliament electing a president. They do not have a problem. Their issue, however, Madam Speaker, is the manner in which this procedure will be carried out. They ask, Madam Speaker, if they will be guarantees that the president who will be elected by Parliament will be accountable, like what we see happening in South Africa, where the president comes and joins parliamentarians and faces questions. At the moment, Madam Speaker, from 2023, since I came to Parliament, I have never had an opportunity to ask anything directly to the president. We would want a situation where we are able to interact directly with the presidency on matters that affect the citizens. Madam Speaker, on the transferring of voters' roll to the Registrar General, they are worried, Madam Speaker, that this places electoral eligibility with the executive. It becomes so very difficult, Madam Speaker, for the Registrar General to do the registration and also conduct elections. while it is progressive that registration should be done by the registrar, but the running of the elections should be done by an independent body. It must not be done by the Registrar General. This is what they are saying. Madam Speaker, I don't want to repeat a lot of the issues that have been said, but I'll just be touching on the important points so that we don't waste a lot of time for other members that would want to debate. Madam Speaker, the issue of chiefs is very topical. Madam Speaker, it is not proper for our chiefs to be involved in politics. The reasons, ma'am, being if a chief has to compete, for example, with me, Tendai Nyati, in an election, it erodes the chief's dignity. It erodes the office of the chief's dignity, because there are a lot of events and insults that are held during campaign period. This will place the chiefs in a very difficult position, Madam Speaker. So, according to them, the chiefs must maintain their roles, their leadership roles, their grievance and problem-solving roles within the communities, and leave politics to politicians, just like the judges do and other public office bearers. Madam Speaker, let me talk about the Gender Commission. Abolishing Zimbabwe Gender Commission and the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission reduces the independent oversight architecture. We must leave the Gender Commission as it is. We must not want to make any changes to that regard. This is what they've said, Madam Speaker. Let me go to the other concerns that they raised, Madam Speaker. They've raised concerns, Madam Speaker, about what will happen with the projects which we think the Second Republic is set to achieve. Madam Speaker, they asked me a question which I could not answer. They said about a decade ago, Mutare Plumtree Road was meant to be dualized. That road has not been dualized. It was just resurfaced. That is over 10 years now. They are asking, Madam Speaker, if there is going to be anything that is going to be done on that road within these two-year period extensions. They are asking, Madam Speaker, about the land degradation. Is there going to be a halt in the rampant mining that is happening in the country within these 2 years? Will these 2 years see beneficiation of minerals by Zimbabweans? Will these 2 years show a difference in the schools, particularly in Matabeleland and Bulawayo, where there are no roofs in some schools, where there are no benches, no desks in some schools? They are worried, Madam Speaker. They are very worried that if CAP 3 does not address these problems, then it is not worth supporting, because they want to see a real change in the communities. They appreciate the works which have been done. They appreciate the efforts that has been done by His Excellency President Mnangagwa. But the bone of contention, Madam Speaker, is Matabeleland as a region is still crying, is still left out. If you go to Matabeleland North, Wange is the oldest mine, over 120 years old. But there's nothing to show in Matabeleland North. There's nothing to show in Wange about that. Madam Speaker, if you go to Matabeleland South, the only two items we can talk about is the lithium mine and the Beitbridge border post. The road from Beitbridge, Madam Speaker, to Bulawayo is pathetic. They ask if CAP 3 is going to address this. They ask if CAP 3 is going to rehabilitate the road between Bulawayo and Beitbridge, which is a gateway to Zambia, to DRC, to Malawi, and other countries. Madam Speaker, coming from Bulawayo, where we have problems with water, I'm sure the Minister of Justice will attest to this, because when we go for budgets, for the past 2 years we've been going to Bulawayo for our budget processes in November. There is a problem with water. Why Shangani Dam has been talked about for a long time. They want to know what is in it for them. What is in it for the people of Bulawayo as far as water reticulation is concerned? Will this see the completion of the Gwai Shangani Dam? Will this see the glass block dam being constructed? Or these 2 years will come and go without anything tangible being seen in Bulawayo? Let me talk about the industries in Bulawayo. Madam Speaker, they want to know what this government will do with regards resuscitating industries in Bulawayo. They want to know what this government will do in as far as capacitating entrepreneurs in Bulawayo is concerned. We see in other areas, Madam Speaker, government doing projects for the youths, doing projects for the ladies, the young ladies. Elsewhere, I won't mention the name, but we see them all over the show. Projects are happening elsewhere, but hardly anything is happening in Bulawayo. If you go to Bulawayo now, Madam Speaker, you will hardly see any construction in the CBD, let alone painting happening. People of Bulawayo want to know what is in it for Cape 3, in Cape 3. What is in it as far as rebuilding the country. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Justice spoke about the toxicity caused by elections. Madam Speaker, even if we go to 7 years, if fundamentals are not corrected, we will not solve the toxicity problem. Madam Speaker, I'll give you an example. If you go to South Africa, you will not see outside of an election ANC branded cars. If you go to Botswana, you will not see BDP branded cars. If you go to Namibia, go wherever you want to go. The toxicity is caused by failure to unite citizens after elections, Madam Speaker. I would want to implore the government to really consider mechanisms of coming out of election mode, because when we see these branded cars roaming around the streets, we wonder if they are going to campaign or where they are going. We want to have a country where after elections we are brought together and we forget about elections. So even if we go to 7 years, as long as we are seeing what is happening, still happening, nothing will change. So we want to ask the minister responsible to allow people to heal and come together after an election by removing anything related to party politics in government. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I want to say the people really appreciate and realize that there has been great transformation from when President Mnangagwa took over until today. If you look, Madam Speaker, if you look at the projects that he has achieved under his watch, you will appreciate the work that he has done. But Madam Speaker, He has achieved all these within the 5-year term. He has achieved these good things within the 5 years that were allotted to him. So, Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, sorry, I'm not saying you look like a man, by the way. I'm sorry. Madam Speaker, people really appreciate, but what we need as a country is the baton of leadership to be passed on. And it must be passed on transparently. It must be passed on smoothly. We don't want a situation where our development is centralized to one party. We want a situation where we sit like we did in the inclusive government. We sit around, we agree on what we want to do, and we move with what we want to do. Madam Speaker, when we did the 2013 constitution, everyone felt involved. Everyone felt involved. The people of Makwekwe Lobengula constituency wish to request that they are given an equal ear, an equal voice in the making of this amendment 3. Madam Speaker, I struggled with some gogos in the constituency. They were of the feeling that CAB 3 was grab 3. I said it's not grab 3, it's CAB 3. They say it is grab 3 because you want to grab 3 terms. I said no, that is not what it is. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, as I sit down, Madam Speaker, I want to say, let us do what is best for the country as Zimbabweans. Let us sit and come to a collective point where we both houses, left and right, agree what is good and what is best for the country. This country has got great potential. This country can grow 10 times what it is today. But we need people to work together. We need to stop the politics of division. Dividing people along political lines, along tribal lines, we need to stop that. Once we come together, we will work for the great prosperity of this country. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Nyati. Honorable Zidzai Butau. Honorable Aita Skani.
Maita basa mbato wechigaro mangwanani akanaka.
Mangwanani.
Zita rangu ini ndinonzi Isaac Taskani, miririri wedunhu reMutoko South. Bato wechigaro, handigone kungotaura zveMutoko South chete ndisingataure kuwasa chigaro wechidiki mudunhu reMasvinani East Province. Saka zvandichataura pano, ndichataura zvabva kuMutoko South, ndotaura zvabva muchitsuwa cheMasvinani East Province. Bato yechigaro, rega nditange nekutenda gurukota rinoona nezvekwenenzvera zvemutemo baba vaZiyambi nebasa guru ravakaunza mudare rino rebhiu redu renumber 3. Regai zvenditende bato yechigaro, boka reparamende rakauya kudunhu reMasvinani East, iro raisanganisira ana Honorable Mateo, ana Honorable Kaitano, vaive paboka irori. Bato yechigaro, ini ndasimuka pano kutsigira bhiriri ini pachezvangu saIsaac Taskani nemhuri yese yeMutoko South constituency nemhuri yese vechidiki muMasvinani East Province. ndichataura ndakanangana nezvatiri kuona sevechidiki, kwete zvakamboitika, asi tira kutaura zvataona zviri kuitwa nababa vaMnangagwa muSecond Republic. Ndichibva kwaMutoko kwandobva mubato wechigaro, tine zvakawanda zvataona zvaitwa nemutungamiriri wenyika zvaita kuti titsigire bhiri. Kukura kwedu mubato wechigaro taingoziva kuti matombo akachekwa kwaMutoko anongotakurwa oenda kunze kwenyika. Asi pauya baba vaMnangagwa muSecond Republic taona makambani anokwana kuita 3 auya maMutoko akakwenenzvera matombo maMutoko. Vanova maMutoko vakawana basa, vanova maMutoko vakwanisa kugadzira vega matombo vachitengesa vachiwana mari. Izvozvozvo zvinhu zvaitwa muSecond Republic nekugona kwababa vaMnangagwa. KwaMutoko zvekare mubato wechigaro tine plani hombe yakauya kuzoiswa ine mishini inogadzira matamatisi nemavegetables yakauya maMutoko, yekuti vanhu havachanyanye pakuuya kuMbare kwaisangana nematsotsi anenge anonzi makoronyori aya. Vanhu vakungoenda pavanogona kufamba kana pavanoboba ngoro dzavo votengesa vopiwa mari dzapo, ipapo vodzokera kumusha. Mubato wechigaro ndiri kwaMutoko zvekare ikoko tine zvakawanda zvataona zvaitwa nababa vaMnangagwa munyaya yezveutano zvaitaurwa nevamwe muno. Tine makirinika akati wandei ane chitsama akaita sana Chisambiro. Kwandinobva kuno inonzi Nyaboti yakabva kupera kuvakwa yasarwa nezvishomanene. Zvese zvaitwa muSecond Republic munguva yaMnangagwa. Ndakatarisa mudunhu reMashona and East Province mubato wechigaro mukutsigira bhiri irori panyaya yezvekurima nemvura. Tine muchekerano wadhemu mubato wechigaro rakavakwa nenguva duku rikapera, iko zvino vanhu vakudiridzira mvura yakachena yekunwa yakuwanika, mukaiswa hove dzekuti ana mai vedu vakunowana usavi. Zvese zvaitwa muSecond Republic zvichitungamirirwa nababa vaMnangagwa. Tiri panyaya yemvura zvekare mubato wechigaro tine inonzi Chifu Dam yakavakwa zvekare nguva duku mubato wechigaro. Iko zvino vanhu vari kunakirwa nekuchera mvura kudiridza nezvakasiyana siyana. Zvese izvi zvaita kuti mhuri yeMashona and East Province itsigire bhiri irori, itsigire kuti president wedu baba Mnangagwa nevanhu vese vari muno nemakansela ari kumusha nevachazouya vakwanise kugara muzvigaro izvi makore anokwana kuita iwo 9 kubva pa5. Mubato wechigaro tine zvakawanda zvekutaura pamusoro pekutsigira bhiri irori. Ndiri kutsigirazve zvekare mubato wechigaro nyaya yekuti dai waro president washarwa mudare rino, ndinoitsigira zvakanyanya. Mubato wechigaro tisi tinogona kunatsotsanangura isu vechidiki matambudziko atinosangana nawo panguva yemaelections. Nekuti panotaura zvemaelections mayuthi ndo anowanzomhanya kupinda musango kuti tiwotsvage sarudzo kuti ndiani awina tovhoterwa sei. Saka takaona zvakakodzera mubato wechigaro kuti bhiri iri ngatiritsigirei chaizvo, nekuti muno tiri vashoma plus kune vamwe vanonzvenga nekuti panovhoterwa president ndo vandavhoterwawo. Zvino tinozvionera toga kumushauko, kansera unonozvionera, MP unonozvionera. Kana uchingowabudirira ikoko woya nemasimba awapiwa nevakupa masimba ekuti umire muno mudare reparamende woya wovhotera president. Hazvina kumboshata, tinozvitsigira izvozvo mubato wechigaro. Bato wechigaro ndakawa vamwe vachiti vanhu vada kupiwa mukana hameno democracy kudii, vanhu ngavavhote kumusha kudii. Bato wechigaro ini kubatora ndobva zvinhu zvede zvinoiswa pajekerere, ende tinongoshandisa maprocess atinoshandisa pageneral election. Vanhu vanongovhoterwa kana tichida kuvhoterana pachezvedu anonzi maprimary election zvakanaka, ende zviri kuti munhu anopiwa kodzero dzake achivhota pasina anomuona, tova nevatungamiriri vanenge vabva kuwanhu. Saka hazvitityise kuti isu tiye kunozoshara president watoda. asi kumwe kwatoziva tichataura nemazita vanhu vanongodzunganai pagraundi apa wonziberekanai awinha ipapo vari vashanu kana vanokwana itaiwo 100 wotonzi tato nemunhu anobirira vanhu kuparamende. Saka muchiona hana dziri kurowa mubato wechigaro. Mubato wechigaro, regai ndiende pachikamu chepiri yatingati clause 2 ine chekuita nekuti dai voters law raidzokera haro kwaregistrar general, vanhu vaikuziva nekuti kwava mudede. Mubato wechigaro isi tiri kutsigira, ini ndiri kutsigira, mhuri kwaMutoko inotsigira, vana mashonandisi vanotsigira kuti ngaridzokere zvaro kuna vamudede, kwaidzi kwava mudede kuno kwaregistrar general. Ende chandinoda kunyanya kutenda gurukota redu Babazi Yambi magona kuti ridzokere kwaregistrar general. Ivo baba vamudede vachiri vapenyu, vachauya neumwe unyanzvi hwawaive nahwo kubvira pawakabva 1980 kusvika 2018, vachinawo uteshe ihwohwo wouya nahwo wodzidzisa vana. Ndinozviziva kuti panorwadza ipapo mubato wechigaro kuti patikamboita maelections kumashure uko, vanhu pawakarakashwa vakamhanya kuti vamudede kuda pane zvavaita zvechokwadi. Mubato wechigaro pakafiwa vanhu vakanyanya kurwadziwa pamwe pacho, vamwe vanomhanya kun'anga, vamwe kwakasiyana siyana kunotsvaga kuti chingi chingadaro munhu afe. Zvazvinozoita ndezvekuti dzimweni dzenguva anenge ati kwegurei uya kana kuti anenge achiratidza kuti mutema ndiye anowanzonongedzerwa. Saka baba vamudede vaive munhu anga akasimba aimira nevanhu, aimira nesaka tinoramba tichingoti panguva iyoyo zvinogona zvezvino zvekuti vanhu vanga vakangovengawo zvavo munhu asina chaatadza. Mukuguma mubato wechigaro, nekuti zvizhinji zvatakutaura zvakataurwa nevamwe, takuda kuti dai minista vachiita kuti dai tachingovhota, nekuti zvinhu zvakapera kare izvi, zvinhu zvakafamba, zvinhu zviri kutsigirwa nevanhu. Hatisi waridi nevairi kana vatatu vanoti haisi hatizvikwanise. Isu sevechidiki gurukota redu regai tikuzivisei kuti isusu zvamuri kuita izvi hamusi kuitira imimi, muri kuitira isu vechidiki kuti patozosara tichagona kufamba nzira yakanaka, patichazosara tichagona kuvaka nyika semavakiro amuri kuita. Saka regai tikutendei naizvozvo. Mubato wechigaro, kumashoko angu ekupedzisira, ini semukuru wechidiki kuMashonaland East Province ndine vamwewo vandinotungamirira navo kubva kumaprovinsi akasiyana siyana. Tina vanobva kuMidlands vadzoro vakanditaurira kuti tiri kutsigira chaizvo tichibva kuno kuMidlands. Tine vamwe vanobva kumasvingo vakatitaurira vamandebvu kuti tiri kutsigira chaizvo soyechidiki. Tine vamwe vanobva kuMashwest vanobva masendas achigaro vakati tiri kutsigira chaizvo, fambai vakomana ikoko. Tine vamwe vanobva kuMat North vanonzi Comrade Land vakati tiri kutsigira, fambai chaizvo. Tine vamwe vanobva kuMat South Comrade Langa vakati fambai tiri kutsigira. Tine vamwe vanobva muno Harare baba Mahati vakati fambai, tinemi vakomana musatye. Ndine vamwe vangu vari muno baba Sakupanya na Comrade Muretu vari pano, baba Raradza vari pano, vari kuti fambai vakomana, zvinhu zvakajeka. We are the last line of defense. Tistotsigira, tistokutsigirai, fambai, hapana chekutya. Mubato wechigaro tinokutendai, Mwari wakuitei zvakanaka. Tatenda.
Mazvita Honorable Tascan, Honorable Mavunga.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to air the views of the people of Chitungwiza South constituency, whom I represent. Madam Speaker, ma'am, perhaps before I go into my debate, I want to debunk the myth that was created yesterday by Honorable Matangira during his debate that there is nothing that Chitungwiza people can say about traditional chiefs because they come from an urban constituency. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the people of Chitungwiza are Zimbabweans. They have a traditional roots in their rural areas. They are not from outer space. they stay in Chitungwiza, it does not imply that they do not appreciate their role and the responsibility of chiefs. The debate, therefore, by Honorable Matangira cannot go unchallenged. Chief Musana of Bindra South is where I come from. Honorable Matangira is my MP. It is therefore unfortunate for him to say that the people in urban areas cannot comment about our roots in the rural areas. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I stand here with a lived experience, personally having participated in CAB 2 under the Committee of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs. I was personally involved in CAB 2. I vividly recall public hearings which were held exclusively on radio stations since it was time of COVID. I recall the positives of CAB 2, which culminated in the extension of women's quota and youth quota. I heard the Honorable Sakupanya complimenting our effort there. I don't have any issues with those clauses. But however, I recall, in my view, the wanton and unnecessary removal of the running mate clause from the Constitution. I also recall the removal of interview process for judges being promoted from the High Court to the Supreme Court and Constitutional Court. This time, CAB 3 has gone for the kill. They are removing interview process for judges altogether. Worse still, I recall the extension of the time and age of Chief Justice from 70 to 75 years, which then benefited the incumbent former Justice Luke Malaba. The High Court bench of Honorable Justice Apias Joe Idimshore and Jester Charewa in the case of Kika versus Minister of Justice and others, as well as Young Lawyers Association of Zimbabwe versus the Judicial Service Commission, would rule that the Chief Justice had ceased to hold office at the age of 70 and would not benefit from the amendment as an incumbent. The decision of the High Court was not without consequences, as it triggered the departure from the bench of Justice Edith Mshore under mysterious circumstances. The judgment was overturned by the Constitutional Court, and Chief Justice Malaba would stay in office until 14 May 2026 at the age of 75. Madam Speaker, ma'am, these are my lived experiences. History has a harsh tendency of repeating itself, and we are at it again. The same script being written, but with different actors. Instead of standing proud having participated in 2 constitutional amendment bills which are supposed to entrench our people's rights, I feel like standing on the wrong side of history, overseeing the shredding of our constitution at every turn. I will begin, Madam Speaker, by a quotation by James Madison. He was the 4th United States President. He lived between 1809 and 1817. He said, open quote, frequent changes to the Constitution will make the government unstable and will have a direct tendency to diminish the respect and attachment which are requisite in order to preserve it, end of quote. Madison's fear was that if the Constitution is amended casually, the people of that particular nation will stop to believe it. At the same time, Immanuel Kant is a philosopher from Germany. He survived between 1724 and 1804. He quickly wrote that the Constitution of the Republic must be such that it cannot be changed by mere will of the government. He saw the Constitution rule as the only moral basis of law. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Constitution of any country must not be amended for the convenience and expedience of those in power at the time. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I caution this as it is increasingly becoming the tendency in Zimbabwe. In this instance, CAB 3 must not be used for dynamics of succession politics.
Point of order.
What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, ma'am, iri bhiri iri harisi kuchitirwa nokuti the ruling party. Bhiri kana tichinge iri constitution ikanga yachinjwa iri kuitirwa namakore anotevera. Padiko kucheka, but that's my point of order, maybe.
Mazvita Honorable Matangira ndofunga vazvinzwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My MP is on it again. Anyway, Madam Speaker, I question this as it is increasingly becoming a tendency in Zimbabwe. In this instance, CAP 3 must not be used for dynamics of succession politics, elite realignment, or competing visions for the future distribution of political and economic power in Zimbabwe. This is the spirit of the clauses which seek to extend the tenure of office for the president, the legislature, and local authority. The Zimbabwean constitution was promulgated in 2013. It is only 13 years old, and already we are on the third amendment. The question, therefore, was there any sincerity when we enacted the constitution in 2013? Certainly not. It is now dawning on us, Madam Speaker, that the 2013 constitution was actually a marriage of convenience for that particular time. Otherwise, the parties to that constitution were not sincere to each other. Madam Speaker, I submit that given the frequency and the nature of amendments, one is forgiven to conclude that the changes are for convenience of those in authority at the time. And this is dangerous for democracy and constitutionalism. The concept of amending a constitution is not a new phenomenon in Zimbabwe. It has existed since time immemorial. It is the circumstance, nature, and the type of amendments that have triggered resistance. To preserve the sanctity and the sui generis nature of a constitution, it is not desirable that it be subjected to frequent and at times unnecessary amendments. In this context, the following examples act as guides on democratic values and constitutionalism. We cannot ignore other jurisdiction, Madam Speaker, because the world is now a global village. We do not exist in isolation. This is the reason why Zimbabwe is about to sit on the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member. This is the reason why we do benchmark visits. The American Constitution is 237 years, having been promulgated in 1789, but only has 27 amendments. Closer to home, Namibia is 36 years old, but has only 3 amendments. Kenyan Constitution is 16 years old. It has no amendments. Japan's constitution was enacted in 1947. It has no amendments. In this context, Madam Speaker, the reasoning advanced that progression of society as necessitated these amendments is merely superficial, as it will be an insult to other progressive countries within the region and beyond, which have not amended their constitution at our rate. Madam Speaker, allow me to deal with a few clauses in the bill which I want to dissociate with. I feel the clauses to do with term extension have already been exhausted by my colleagues. I do not agree with the clause which seeks to transfer voters' roll from ZEC to the Registrar General. ZEC is an independent body. What does that mean, Madam Speaker, It means that ZEC reports to Parliament. The Registrar General is accountable to the executive. By transferring the role to the Registrar General, Parliament is saying we have failed in our oversight role over ZEC. Therefore, let's get rid of it and throw it somewhere else. Parliament cannot allege that ZEC has failed because it means the Parliament itself would have failed to oversee ZEC. ZEC has trained staff and has acquired the relevant polling station-based voting material, which the Registrar General at the moment is not seized with. Instead of cutting costs, this clause intends to increase costs in human resources training and registration equipment by the Registrar. Similarly, Madam Speaker, there is no need to transfer the delimitation of boundaries to a separate commission. Delimitation in terms of the current constitution only takes place once in 10 years. Yet we want to create a separate commission which works only once in 10 years. The second clause, Madam Speaker, which my input is close to my heart, is clause 15. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I am not only a lawyer, I am a legal practitioner. These are the issues that confront us on daily basis in the corridors of judiciary. They are live issues which most legal practitioners are concerned with. The clause 15.6 speaks to the appointment of judges by the President after consulting the Judicial Service Commission. It seeks to remove the process of interviews of judges before being appointed. The process of interviewing judges was so transparent as it ensured that the best person for the job with the relevant skills and the qualification would be selected for the job. Public participation was guaranteed and the integrity of the process was well known. I was carefully listening to the minister's rationale in removing this constitutional clause, but I did not hear any clear mischief which this clause intends to cure, other than consolidating and centralizing power in the president in a country where separation of power is sacrosanct. South Africa, Kenya, Uganda are good examples where judges of the High Court undergo the process of interviews. In Uganda, even Parliament, Madam Speaker, is involved in the process of interviewing of judges. So if Zimbabwe is amending the constitution on the issue of selection of the president to be based on parliamentary democracy, we are citing South Africa as an example of parliamentary democracy. Why don't we cite South Africa also in the process of appointment of judges? The intended approach on the appointment of judges has the following negative attributes and unintended consequences. There is a general fear of appointment of judges on political, tribal, religious, or other grounds rather than on merit. There is a risk of appointment of compromised individuals whose independence as judicial officers is biased towards the appointing authority, thereby eroding the doctrine of separation of powers. There will be low public confidence and trust in the courts if judges appear to have been handpicked behind closed doors. Madam Speaker, ma'am, Clause 21, which seeks to repeal Section 281 of the Constitution, thereby allowing traditional chiefs to participate actively in politics, runs contrary to the principles governing traditional leaders in this country. Before I submit the factual issues around this issue, Madam Speaker, ma'am, as much as honorable members and the minister would debate in support of the traditional leaders being involved in active politics, this is impossible, as such an amendment will be unconstitutional. On this one, the Minister of Justice, who is a lawyer by profession, has no discretion but to remove the clause. There is no constitutional engineering he can do, as this clause contradicts other clauses in the Constitution. It is not a matter of persuasion, it is a matter of law, because the Constitution cannot contradict itself. This clause, standing alone, will contradict other sections in the Constitution to the extent that it cannot pass itself without amending other constitutional provisions. In that context, we will need to have another cable 4 in order to streamline this particular clause with the Constitution. Section 163, subsection 1, Madam Speaker, of the Constitution provides that traditional leaders are members of the judiciary. And Section 165, subsection A and B provides that members of the judiciary must not engage in any political activities. Subsection B says that members of the judiciary must not hold office in or be members of any political organization. So once we have agreed that chiefs or traditional leaders are part of the judiciary, then other clauses in the Constitution have to be amended. And these clauses cannot be amended without going to public hearings again. So this clause, Madam Speaker, if enacted as law, it will be unconstitutional. Madam Speaker, ma'am, traditional leaders are not just leaders. They are traditional. They are spiritual and cultural ambassadors of their communities. We should not conflate the role of traditional leader to that of a political leader.
Honorable Mafunga, you are left with 5 minutes.
I will be done, Madam Speaker. Since time immemorial, they have presided over disputes within their jurisdiction without segregating The core job of traditional leaders is in the community is to unite people. Once they join party politics, half of the village sees them as biased. That weakens their authority in resolving disputes. Well, political parties can then use chiefs to mobilize votes, threaten dissenters, or claim traditional backing. That turns cultural authority into campaign machinery. Political office is associated with many negative factors, such as sloganeering, political banter, at times insults. This should not extend to chiefs, as it will belittle them, and they will lose their spiritual and cultural value. Madam Speaker, ma'am, imagine a chief losing a primary election to a crowhead. Will the crowhead and those that voted him still respect the chief in the same light? The submission by the minister that chiefs are already in Senate and are part of the legislature does not make them partisan. In principle and according to the Constitution, they are not supposed to represent party interests. They represent diverse cultural interests in the Senate. Many countries, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, like South Africa, Ghana, Uganda, Zambia, they bar chiefs from getting involved in politics. The middle-age approach, Madam Speaker, is that chiefs must be allowed to vote, which is their right, but not to actively participate in politics. Madam Speaker, my final submission relates to the Constitutional Court. On this one, I submit, Madam Speaker, that it is a progressive amendment. The Constitutional Court must be allowed to hear cases of national interest on points of law. In fact, the Constitutional Court, Madam Speaker, should actually be allowed to hear cases on merits rather than on technicality, what we have been seeing under Chief Justice Malaba. For the above reasons, Madam Speaker, Chitunguza South constituents cannot and does not endorse this bill. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Mafunga. Honorable B. Mutumi.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for affording me the opportunity to speak the voice of the people of Masvingo North constituency and myself as the representative of the ZANU-PF Mass Party on Constitution Amendment Bill number 3. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I rise to support the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Bill number 3. I would like to draw you to the attention that countries with the progressive democracies always keep their constitutions under checks if it still suits the will of the majority and the national direction. And in that aspect, ours cannot be left out in modernizing our democracy. The bill represents significant and progressive steps towards strengthening the governance systems, improving administrative efficiency, and promoting political stability. Constitutional reform is a normal feature of constitutional democracies across the whole world, and it is viewed as means of ensuring that governance systems remain responsive to national realities and development aspirations. This proposed amendment seeks to streamline institutions, eliminate duplication of functions, strengthen accountability, and create conditions necessary for successful implementation of Vision 2030 and the National Development Strategy NDS2. This bill seeks to build governance architecture that is more efficient, cost-effective, and development-oriented. And it is at a time like this when Zimbabwe is pursuing ambitious infrastructure, industrialization, and economic transformation programs. Therefore, it is imperative that the constitutional framework supports policy continuity and effectiveness of the national cohesion. Madam Speaker, ma'am,
In the spirit of not leaving no one behind, I support that we continue with the Gender Commission to promote the gender equality, and the new system we are proposing will require a parliament that is gender balanced to push the country forward. Allow me to speak in my vernacular for a little bit, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Panguwa yatakawana Gender Commission, Madam Speaker, ma'am, takaona madzimai achipinda muzvigaro zvepamusoro vachikurudzirwa nemapolicies enyika nekubata kweGender Commission. Isu saMasvingo North takazvara one of the best attorney generals and the first woman attorney general in this country, Madam Speaker, ma'am. On clause 2, the Registrar General is already responsible for maintaining birth, death, national identity and citizenship records. So consolidating voter registration under the same authority will improve data accuracy, reduce duplication, strengthen accountability, and lower the administrative costs. A single authoritative database will enhance the integrity of national records and improve service delivery. Revamping our governance system is also in sync with many systems in the region, like Botswana, South Africa. On clause 3, I support for the parliament to elect the president. This system promotes stronger cooperation between the executive and the legislature. It reduces the enormous cost associated with the nationwide presidential elections, and this minimizes electoral tensions and violence. This model is not unique. Countries such as South Africa, Botswana, Ethiopia, Germany, Italy, and India, they use the parliamentary mechanisms in selecting their head of state government. And these systems have contributed to political stability, stronger institutional accountability, and improved policy coherence. Madam Speaker, ma'am, on clauses 4, 9, and 10, I support the extending the term of office for the President, the Parliament, and local authorities from 5 years to 7 years. Frequent elections are costly and often place the country in a perpetual campaign mode. Development requires stability, continuity, and adequate time for implementation. Major national projects such as Gwai Shangani Dam, the Blawayo Victoria Falls Road Rehabilitation, and other infrastructure industrialization initiatives, they require long-term planning and consistent implementation. Madam Speaker, ma'am, if you look at China, President Xi Jinping got an extension after starting a developmental work that has seen China rise to be a superpower. Back home in Zimbabwe, our gold deliveries and reserves have gone up. Our food security is at an all-time high, and massive infrastructure work is underway. Do we want to hastily change a winning team? The answer and the masses say no. So Constitution Amendment Bill number 3 gives us a chance to continue on this trajectory. And that's what our people have overwhelmingly said in public hearings. Longer electoral cycles will improve investor confidence and enhance fiscal planning, allowing our government to focus on service delivery rather than constant election preparations. This approach is not unusual internationally. Cameroon has a 7-year presidential term. Ireland and Italy have a 7-year presidential term. These examples demonstrate that longer terms can coexist with democratic governance while promoting policy continuity and national development. On clause 5, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I support the removal of distinctions such as the first vice president, and the second vice president. And this amendment promotes equality within the presidium. It strengthens collective leadership and eliminates unnecessary perceptions of hierarchy. It will foster teamwork, unity, and coordination at the highest level of government. Madam Speaker, Ma'am, on clause 8, modern governance, it requires expertise. The appointment of 10 technocrat senators will enrich our parliamentary debates. And through the inclusion of experts in areas such as economics, engineering, health, education, agriculture, and technology. If you look at many countries, they utilize appointed members in upper houses and legislative bodies to bring specialist knowledge into policy formulation and lawmaking. This proposal will strengthen legislative scrutiny, improve the quality of laws, and encourage evidence-based decision-making. Madam Speaker, Ma'am, on clause 12 and 13, I support the establishment of Electoral Delimitation Commission. Our past delimitation exercise has generated concerns regarding the constituents' boundaries and reassignment of voters to distant polling stations. A specialized commission will enhance fairness, transparency, and professionalism in constituents' delimitation. This will improve accessibility, voter participation, and public confidence in electoral processes. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, Ma'am, as the representative of the people, it is important that we do not deviate from the aspirations of the people who have already spoken, overwhelmingly supporting the bill, Constitution Amendment Bill number 3. So if these people have spoken, who is asked to say no? It's time to align our governance systems with global democratic trends, where parliamentary democracy reflects the will of the people. Madam Speaker, Ma'am, this bill seeks to address democratic deficiencies which are at variance with modern-day governance and democratic trends. This amendment creates conditions for sustainable national development. The bill aligns the Vision 2030 and the National Development Strategy 2 by creating a governance framework that is going to support Zimbabwe's transformation agenda into an upper-middle income economy. President Mnangagwa is a steady hand and has the experience that is required to keep us on the path to development. This is why our party, the ruling party, has proposed to allow him to continue and finish the works that he has started. As parliamentarians, it is our duty to implement the resolutions from our party, which has brought us here. Change must not be for the sake of it to earn plaudits from Western democracies. It must be beneficial to the people of Zimbabwe. Madam Speaker, Ma'am, we learned that the democratic systems from Europe, particularly the British and the Americans, which has been accused of being the handlers of our colleagues, and these have taught us that functional democracy is where legislature is empowered enough to appoint or disappoint the executive through parliamentary vote. And they've taught us that if you look at parliamentary vote in America and Britain, they all speak to appoint the president through the parliament. Madam Speaker, Ma'am, with this submission from the people of Masvingo North, the mass party ZANU-PF, I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Madumi. Honorable D. Mashonganyika.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice on this Amendment Bill number 3. I also want to thank the move of this motion, Honorable Minister of Justice, Siambi Siambi. The majority of people from National and Central Province across all districts are in full support of this amendment bill. Madam Speaker, I want to comment on this number 3 clause. The election of the president by the parliament. The participants are in full support of this clause, viewed this as a progressive reform that could reduce election costs, minimize political tensions, and promote unity. If Parliament, Madam Speaker, ma'am, if Parliament can take the role of impeachment of the President, yes, why not elect their own President? Madam Speaker, ma'am, on clause 4, the majority of the people of National and Central Province strongly in support of extension of the President's term of office from 5 years to 7 years. They emphasized that longer terms would promote policy continuity, reduce the frequency of election, and it creates stable environment for economic growth. I also strongly support this clause. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the President's Vision 2030 agenda aims to transform Zimbabwe into an upper middle income economy. The participants of National and Central across all the entire districts are in support of term extension of parliamentarians and councillors from 5 years to 7 years. Longer terms would allow members of parliament to complete their development projects and deliver meaningful results. This was emphasized by rural areas people, urban areas, and also growth points. The majority of people strongly in support of Zimbabwe Gender Commission, especially women in National and Central Province, because it plays a pivotal role in promoting women's rights, advances gender equality, women participation in politics, and also women empowerment. Finally, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the traditional leaders are citizens who should be allowed to exercise their political rights. Participants drew deeply from the country's liberation history, making reference to figures such as Mbuya Nyanda, Sekuru Kaguve, and so on, who symbolizes the central role of traditional leadership in politics and spiritual resistance during colonial rule. I, as a war veteran, I noticed and witnessed this, Madam Speaker. Even my fellow war veterans in this August House also witnessed this. So I strongly support this clause. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Mashonganyika. Honorable Tsungai Makumbe.
maita basa mubati wechigaro mangwanani akanaka. Point of order.
Honorable Speaker, no, it's the third speaker from that side. It's the turn for this side now to take the floor.
Pane patadenza honorable Dzidzai Butau vanga vasipo tabva taenda pana honorable Tuscan kubva taya kuna honorable Mafunga. Taifana kutora 2 uku saka we are compensating.
Tinotenda mubati wechigaro. Rega nditore mukana uno kutendai nenguva yamandipawo yekuti ndiisewo muono wangu maringe nenyaya iri muno mudare yatsviriridza pasi rose. Chekutanga ndinoda kutaura ini ndakamirira maZone North constituency kundova ndokwandinobva. Ndisvitse shoko nemuono wevanhu wavakandituma nawo kuno. Ndinoda kutanga kutaura kuti maZone North constituency iri kufara zvikuru neCAB 3 iyo yakasumudzwa mudare muno naminister wedu wejustice. Vari kufara vati ndiudze minister kuti minister muri uchi rambai makadaro CAB 3 bho zvokuti vasvitsa shoko zvekare vari kuti ivo isusu tinotsigira zvakasimba bill rakaunzwa mudare rino reparliament. Vari kutsigira zvakasimba zvikuru sei munyika kunzvimbo yandinobva uku ndo nyika yambuya nehanda uye riri dunhu remazowe. Mazowe yese nemaZone North yacho vari kufara zvikuru. Vari kuti iri bill rauya panguva yakanaka chaizvo nekuti rakumboti rinofanira kuti ripasiswe ribudirire zvakanyanya zvikuru sei clause 2 inotaura iyo kuti mutungamiri wenyika anenge akusarudzwa mudare rino reparliament. Ndinokumbira Madam Speaker mundichengetedze kubva kunawe ari kundikanganisa kutaura. Tinotenda. Vari kutaura ivo kuti zvakakosha paclose inotaura kuti mutungamiri wenyika asarudzwe ndare reparliament. Ivo vari kutsigira zvakasimba. Vari kuti zvakakosha izvozvo nekuti zvinotipa mukana wokuti kumusha uku vanozororawo kuswera vachivengana nekuswera vachinetsana pachavo. Saka vari kuti vari kusapota nekutsigira zvakasimba kuti mutungamiri wenyika asarudzwe kuno kudare reparliament. Uye panhau yekutsigira panhau yekuwedzerwa kwetemu kubva pa5 years zvichienda pa7 temu yapresident netemu member of parliament netemu yemacancelors. Izvozvo vari kuzvifarira chaizvo nekuti munoziva kuti kuMashona Central takanyanya afektwa nehondo. Saka vari kuti aiwaka iyi ndo nguva yakanaka iyi 7 years dzinenge dzakanaka kuti titsigirewo kuti vanhu vambotora mukana wokuvaka nyika nekuti nyika inoda kuvakwa nenguvo ino yakati kurei. Padiki 5 years dzangachitaisa kuti zvimwe zvinhu zvigadzirisike, zvimwe zvinhu zvigone kufamba pa5 years dzishoma. Asi ivo matauriro avo vaitotaura ivo vachitsigira vati dai zvaitobvira pa7 years dzamukutaura kuti maisa 2 years chete dzamawedzera dziritori dzishoma. Isusu sevanhu vakakanganiswa nehondo kuMashona Central tanga achitoda kana zvitobvira kana 40 kana 50 years maelection asangoramba achimwetwa padiki nekuti anotikanganisa kuti tidevelope nzvimbo yedu nenyika yedu zvekare. Zvakafanana naizvezvi kuMashona Central province tiri kuona basa rakanaka riri kuitwa nemutungamiri wenyika comrade E.D. Mnangagwa. Basa iro rinoda nguva. Saka kuvaka nyika kwasiyana nekuberekwa kwomwana anogona kungodzi 9 manzi mwana anotongoberekwa chete. kumashona central province vari kuti aiwa kuvakwa kwenyika kuda kutora kunda nguva yakati rebei kunyika yegovakika zvakanaka zvakafanana neni mubati wechigaro pandiri panapa ndinovo zvekare mubandiko revechidiki kubato redu reZANU-PF ndirimo mutungamirwa wechidiki vavechidiki province yese yemacentral totsanganisa nyika yese ndakawana mukana wokuenda kumati north ndakawana mukana wokuenda kumati south ndakawana mukana wokuenda kumanikaland kumasvingo march east march west manikaland kunyange muno muharare matiri vechidiki vese nebulawayo province vese vechidiki vari kutsigira vakuti aiwa uyu muono wakanaka chaizvo unotipa mukana wokuti nyika yedu inyatsovakika zvakasimba nekuti makatarisa kune vamwe vedu vasingagone kuona nokuti imbwa chaidzo kana dzakaberekwa hadzisvinura zuva rimwe chete hadzitange kuonerana zuva rimwe chete kana kutoyamwa imwe ndiyo inotanga kuyamwa imwe inononoka kuzoyamwa inotozoitawo zvekufemedza kusvika yazokwanisa kusvika pane munyatso waamai isu sevechidiki tiri kutsigira tichiti aiwa iri zuva iri tanga takatorimirira kubva kare zvanga zvatononoka minista imimi chirongwa chamukauya nacho munomu ichi ngachifambe chigoenderera mberi basa iri pere nekuti isu sevechidiki tutati aiwa Cape 3 ball zvokuti uye zvatoendwa tiri kutaura kuti nenguva iyoyi honorable minister isu takutomirira chete kuti dai zvachitongoitwa zvachitopera vechidiki vari kunzoku vari kufara zvakasimba uye vari kutsigira zvakasimba toenda padare remadzimambo paclose inotsigira iri kutaura nezvemadzimambo madzimambo isu tiri muno mutagara tiringori madzimambo kudhara vana honorable mangwavo madzimambo ava vakatiza kumusha kwavo chiweshe kuti vaende uchinhoyu asi madzimambo saka isi tiri semadzimambo hapana chakamboipa kuti madzimambo anga achinokuitwawo futi zvematongerwo enyika hapana kana chakaipa nenhau yekuti tagara titorimo muzvinhu zvacho uye madzimambo kubva kudhara vakabvira varivo vari kutongoita zvematongerwo enyika izvozvo saka hapana chakamboipa kuti zvibudikire pachena kuti vemadzimambo vange vachinyatsosanga vachinyatsopinda nemazvo netsoka dzavo dzese vakanyatsomira mune zvematongerwo enyika toenda paclose yanga ichitaurwa yekwaregistrar general ini ndiri kuona zvakanaka chaizvo kuti kwaRG ikoko ngazvingoenda tingoti neko neko ngazvidzokere ikoko kwaRG kwavamudede ikoko ndiri kutsigira zvakasimba nemhuri yemazowe noti ndakaimiririra nemhuri yemazowe zvekare kuti ngazvifambe zvakadaro zvidzokere ikoko kuti zvinyatsofamba zvakanaka kuitira vamwe vedu vaivai nokuti inini zvinondinetsa makatarisa panoitwa maelections mazhinji ini kwangu ndakakwikwidzana nevamwe kuti ndakavasvasvanga zvokuti dhu asi inini havana mbondiendera kukoti kuti ndabirirwa asi kuna president onzwa kuti kuti aiwa tazonzwa ihe zvazodii voters roll razenge rakadii zvazenge zvakadai saka zvakangonaka kuti aiwa akadzokera kwaRG ikoko kwaregistrar general zvinonyatsofamba zvakanaka nekuti pamwe pachena unonzwa chipomera kuti kuri kuvhotwa nevanhu vakafa taona vari pavoters roll saka ezvino zvakadzokera kwamudede kwaregistrar general zvinotipa mukana nekuti ndo vagara vane zvese zvitupa zvedu mapasipoti mabhethi madhethi zvese nyangwe bhethi record chaiyo unogona kuti wakaenda naye ikoko inenge wakaenda naye unokwanisa kupiwa bhethi rako saka zvakangonaka kuti zvingodzokera ikoko hapana chakamboipa ipapo mubati wechigaro ndinokutendai nenguva yamandipa inini nemhuri yemazowe north nhasi ndawana mukana wekuti nditaure ifirst time yangu kutaura nzamona ndinenge ndiri kuita kakuvhunduka hangu kutaura muno asi ndati nditsigire chinhu ichi ndichitenda minista ziyambi ndinoda kupedza itenda minista ziyambi kuti minista ziyambi chipedzai maspoti akapera kudhara isu tiri kukutsigirai tichimusapotai zvakasimba pasina kana chinomiswa ipapo tiri kuti harimire ngarambe rakadaro
Point of order. Yatopera shamwari gara pasi.
What is your point of order?
Nonetheless, I think he has just finished, but I wanted to then say, Madam Speaker, the honorable member that was on the floor must be well educated to address the minister with his full title properly as honorable minister. I think the way how he addressed is very poor, very indecorous.
Mazvita Honorable Makumbe. Next honorable member to take the floor is Honorable Mamombe.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to debate the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment number 3 Bill of 2026. Madam Speaker, ma'am, in doing so, I carry with me the views and concerns of the citizens of Harare West constituency, gathered through a constituency consultative meeting that I held on the 21st of March 2026 in Maubra in Harare West constituency. I wish to state from the onset that the people that I represent have expressed an overwhelming opposition to this bill. Ma'am, they believe it weakens the democratic governance, it undermines constitutionalism, and erodes the sovereignty of the citizens. Our constitution is not an ordinary statute. It is a supreme law of the land and a social contract between the citizens and the state. Madam Speaker, ma'am, at the center of this bill today is a fundamental question. Does this bill strengthen the sovereignty of the people, or does it take away the power from the people and concentrate it into the executive? The Constitution of Zimbabwe is founded on a popular sovereignty. The legislative authority that we enjoy today is derived from the people. Parliament is therefore not a master of the Constitution, but Parliament is a servant of this very Constitution. Madam Speaker, ma'am, this bill, when read as a whole, does not merely make technical changes. It forms a coherent scheme that weakens the electoral accountability, reduces citizens' participation, and consolidates power in the executive. When I was going through this bill as presented by the Honorable Minister Ziyambi, I saw a troubling pattern. I saw that the bill seeks to take away the people's direct right to elect their head of state. I saw that the bill also seeks to extend the term of elected officials. I also saw that the bill weakens the independent institutions and concentrates more authority in the executive. I am therefore, Madam Speaker, ma'am, convinced that these amendments move this country, Zimbabwe, into a wrong direction. Let me go clause by clause, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I want to start with clause 2. Clause 2 removes the voter registration, compilation of the voters' roll, and custody of the voters' roll from an independent Zimbabwe Electoral Commission and transferring those roles and these functions to the Registrar General. As Harare West constituency and myself, we reject this clause. The voters' roll is a function, the voters' roll is a foundation of a free and fair election. Whoever controls the voters' roll, Madam Speaker, ma'am, controls the critical part of our electoral process. Moving this function from ZEC to the Registrar General weakens the electoral independence and places a core electoral function under an office that lacks the same constitutional safeguards as the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Speaker, ma'am, if the concerns with ZEC is efficiency, the answer is very simple. the answer is not to strip away ZEC of its mandate. The answer is to strengthen ZEC by making sure we improve data sharing with the Registrar General, modernizing registration systems. We are now in the 4th industrial revolution where we can make use of AI, and also ensure transparency within ZEC. Let me quickly move on to clause 3. This is one of the most dangerous clauses, Madam Speaker, ma'am. It proposes that the president must be elected by members of parliament in a joint sitting of Senate and the National Assembly. The people of Harare West are very clear. The president must be elected directly by the people. We maintain that there must be one vote, one person, one vote must remain. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the question is, are we saying the liberation struggle and its gains were a mistake? One person, one vote, was it a mistake? Madam Speaker, ma'am, I want to say today, let us today not strip away the citizens of their right to vote. Why should an elected few decide for the majority? A direct presidential election is not a democratic feature of our democracy. This is a central mechanism through which citizens exercise sovereignty. Removing the people's direct vote for presidents reduces millions of Zimbabweans to spectators, while a small group of parliamentarians decides who becomes the head of state. Madam Speaker, ma'am, on this clause, this also creates serious risk of patronage, bribery, intimidation, and political bargaining. In a context like our country, where money and executive power already influence political processes, reducing the electoral college from millions of citizens to a few parliamentarians is very dangerous. Even more concerning, the proposed clause appears to allow a person who was never directly elected by the people or even rejected by the voters to become a president through this parliament. This is not democracy. This is a removal of the people from the center of government. I therefore oppose clause 3. Madam Speaker, let me move to clause 4, 9, and 10, which talks about the extension of terms from 5 years to 7 years. In 2023, the President and members of Parliament were elected for a 5-year term. No candidate sought a mandate from the people for 7 years. To extend the term after the election is to alter the people's mandate after it has already been given. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the bill is about consolidation of political power. This is what we have seen since this debate started. If one examines the political campaign surrounding this bill, particularly the advertisements that have been put out on radio and television, the focus is not on deepening democracy or strengthening our institutions or even improving the governance. The focus has been on an individual. If you listen to the jiggles, if you listen to the songs around this bill, they've been centered on an individual, and we reject this bill, Madam Speaker, ma'am. No elected body has a moral or constitutional authority to unilaterally extend its own term of office without returning to the people. This is precisely why Section 328, subsection 7 exists. It improves the incumbents. It prevents the incumbents from benefiting from the amendments that extend their term in office. It is a constitutional firewall against self-serving amendments. If leaders want a 7-year term, they must ask the people directly through a referendum and apply these changes only for future office holders, not this current parliament. Clause 8 allows the president to appoint additional senators. The proposal de-democratizes the Senate. Senators must represent the people and their provinces, not presidential preference. The danger between, Madam Speaker, ma'am, the danger becomes clearer when clause 8 is read together with clause 3. If Parliament elects the president and the president appoints the senators, then the system risks being secular. There is presidential influence shaping the body that may in turn choose the president in the future. This also affects the constitutional amendment arithmetic. Additional appointed senators, as proposed by the bill, can alter the balance of power in parliament and make it easier for a ruling party to reach the supermajority without obtaining a genuine two-third mandate from the voters. This is not a technical reform. It is a constitutional fraud, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Let me move to clauses 11, 12, 13, and 17. These clauses talks about the Electoral Delimitation Commission and the reduction of the ZEC function. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the delimitation and voter registration must remain with ZEC, and ZEC must be strengthened. The problem with our electoral system is not that ZEC has too much independence. The problem is that citizens, they want more transparency, want more independence, more accountability, and more public confidence. The proposed delimitation commission would be appointed by the president. Again, this is an executive override. That creates a risk that boundary delimitation, one of the most politically sensitive electoral functions, may become a subject of executive influence. Free and fair elections require an independent institutions. These clauses move us in a different direction. The repeal in the constitutional provision requiring traditional leaders not to be members of political parties or to participate as partisan politics. This is clause 21. We strongly reject this clause. Traditional leaders serve communities made by the citizens from different political views. Their authority depends on neutrality, fairness, and trust. If traditional leaders become openly partisan, their constitutional role as community leaders and quasi-judicial authority is compromised. This clause also affects the Senate, because the chiefs, they're going to be sitting in the Senate as members of parliament. So if chiefs are no longer constitutionally required to be non-partisan, then the democratic legitimacy of the Senate is further weakened. You have additional 10 senators, you have chiefs who are now partisan. This will weaken our Senate, Madam Speaker, ma'am. The traditional leaders must remain above partisan politics. They must not subscribe to any political party, Madam Speaker, ma'am. The recurring message from my constituents that I represent in this august house, Harare West constituents, was to demand for a referendum. The people of this country made the constitution. The people must decide whether it must be fundamentally altered. As their representative today, I wish to place their views before this House and submit that the Constitution of Zimbabwe, Amendment number 3 bill, must be rejected in its entirety. The Constitution must be rejected in its entirety. The Constitution of this country belongs to the people, and no one has a right to play around with the people's constitution. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I therefore submit the views and concerns of the people of Harare West constituents. I thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Mamombe. Honorable Kariko Gati.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My name is Tawanda Karikoga, and Mushangoipa Gokwap. Madam Speaker, the amendments are necessary to ensure, as a country, we achieve what is best for Zimbabweans. I'm not here to quote European philosophers and their philosophies. I'm here to say what my great philosopher said. Nyika inovakwa nevene vaene. Now, if we are to build this country, Madam Speaker, we build this country, we develop this country using our constitution. And these constitutional amendments we are debating today are necessary for the growth and the development of Zimbabwe. The amendments to the constitution are for Zimbabwe, for Zimbabweans, and for the good of Zimbabweans. I will not burden the House with the points already exhausted by other members who spoke before me. I will simply give practical examples on why, as Gokwe, we support Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026. The people who voted for me, Madam Speaker, Abiyangu from Gokwe Mafungawusi constituents, they said they are in agreement with the amendments. I will firstly focus on clause 17 that seeks to give registrar the mandate to register voters. And I'll also give a practical example of why people from Gokwe are supporting this clause. The current system, Madam Speaker, particularly disfranchise particularly voters from rural areas. Therefore, voter registration presently is not fair in comparison with urban voters. Building up to 2023 voter registration, that left many people without being registered to vote. People, particularly from Gokwe South, over 15,000 of them, could not vote because the ZEC, without coordination with the Registrar General's office, embarked on a voter registration blitz, but people had no IDs. Madam Speaker, 2 weeks later, after ZEC was complete with their blitz, 2 weeks later, the registrar also went on a blitz to register, to give people IDs. And ZEC was already done with voters registration. And this left many of our people without being registered to vote. I'll also give you an example. People from Manoti in Gokwe South, people from Sengwa Bridge, from as far as Ndadulo and Ganyungu, that's about 100 kilometers from ZEC district office. They have to sacrifice their time and money to go to register to vote, only to be told that ZEC's network is offline. And those people will take another 2 days to go back, Madam Speaker, without registering to vote. It is against this background that people from Gokwe South are supporting the clause. Our current constitution, Madam Speaker, is improved to avoid a constitutional crisis when it comes to election of the president. We should be grateful that we haven't experienced a clear potential crisis brought by this constitution. As alluded to by the Speaker, by the Justice Minister in his remarks, this current constitution has potential to give us a president who may not have 2/3 majority in parliament, or who may not have majority support in parliament, thus creating a crisis. I support the motion that president must be voted by parliament. This will also ensure that there is no more waiting for presidential votes to be verified as required by the current laws. Presidential elections, Madam Speaker, are a logistical nightmare. Those with rural constituencies, I want you to think about the furthest polling station in your constituency. That polling station which is hard to reach. A presidential vote will come from that polling station, then transferred to ward collection center, where a councillor will be declared a winner. I know most of our members here their constituencies are actually smaller than the wards in the rural areas that are small. Then from the ward collation center, that vote will go to the constituent collation center. Then from there to the district, then from there to the province. Then from there, Madam Speaker, the ZHQ will be having votes from 1,970 wards of this country. And the nightmare where that vote will wait until all 64 admin districts have been verified and announced. I think against this background, people from Gokwe, we say Parliament must vote for the President. The proposed 7 years, Honorable Speaker, provides political stability in this country and also promotes sustained economic growth, foreign direct investments, as well as tourism. The infrastructure development that we are witnessing in this country indeed requires 7 more years to complete. This allows our government to implement long-term policy strategies and foster public trust, enabling social and human capital progress. Madam Speaker, allow me to sit down. And as I said earlier, people from Gokwe South, they are in support of this amendment bill.
Further debate, I call upon Honorable Msiwa.
maita basa mubati wechigaro ndokutipawo mukana uno wokuti nditaurewo pamusoro pehurukuro yatiinayo yatakapuhwa nevanoremekedzwa minista vedu vaziyambe ziyambe. Ini ndakamiririra Mutoko East constituency inosanganisira nzvimbo dzinoti idzo Dombo rine Nhivi, Chije, Chibeta, Makora, Mishimbo, Chinyika, Chikara, Rukau, Nyamakosi, Kapondoro, Chisambiro, Chikukwa. Vese munzvimbo idzodzo vakandituma vakati izvoendai munotaura kuti tiri kutsigira zvizere, takanyura mari iri bhiri kuti izvo zvese zvirimo hapana chatinopokana nacho. Saka ndiri kuti semutungamiriri wekumutoko East constituency tinotsigira zvizere bhiri irori. Ndinoda kutaurawo zvakare kuti mamutoko macho ndine chimwe chigaro chandinacho chokuona mutoko yese nemaconstituencies matatu. Chigaro changu chakafanana icho, handichachitaura sechaziki na Honorable Mdunga Hama. Semutoko tiri kuti izvo tiri kutsigira Cape 3 zvakasimba pasina kupokana. Pakauya vaibvunza ivo nezvekuti munozviona sei mutoko yese kubva kune vechidiki kubva kusvika kumadzimai, vana baba nemawo veterans vese semhuri yemutoko vari kutsigira bill number 3. Mubati wechigaro tinoona kuti mutungamiriri wedu wehurumende, mutungamiriri wedu wenyika, baba vedu vaMunangagwa vane muono wavainawo wavanotiwo vakasvika pa2030 izvi zvinogona kunge zvazadziswa semuenzaniso pavanotiwo village rimwe nerimwe richafanira kunge riine chibhorani charo. Zvinova zvinhu zvatiri kuona zviri kuitika. Sekutaura kwandiri kutoita izvozvi izvi chibhorani chiri kwakapondoro chiri kutochera cheddf cherida chiri kutochera bhohoro ipapa sekutaura kwandiri kuita pachikoro chinonzi Chimoyo Primary School, chekuti chikoro chega chega chinofanira kunge chaane bhohoro racho. Saka nekudaro izvozvozvo nomuono wapresident iwoyo ndo watiri kutsigira kuti ngavarambe vakadaro. Mutungamiriri wenyika zvakare ane muono wemagetsi kuti tinofanira kusvika patinenge taakukwanisa kutengesera dzimwewo nyika magetsi. Saka nekudaro nemuono wavainawo ndo watiri kutsigira kuti vasvike 2030 nokuti vazadzikisa muono wavo wavanenge vainawo. Mubati wechigaro, ndinoda kuenda panyaya yekutiyo temu isvike iyo pa7 years. Pa7 years apa panopa mukana weari kutungamirira nyika, kansela, kunyangwe isusu vari muimba ino, mukana wokuti izvo unoronga zvinhu zvako kuti zvingochikwanisa kuzvipedza. Ndinoda kutaura ndichiti ndakapinda mu9th parliament ndikakwanisa kumisikidza makirinika ari panzvimbo ari pachiyero chakasiyana siyana anokwana kuita manomwe. Imwe chete yacho ipapa yakatovhurwa, imwe yacho yakuda kuvhurwa, imwe yacho zvakare yatova padhuze kuti inge ichivhurwa. Hazvigone kuti ugone kuvaka makirinika aya mu5 years, asi zvinoda nguva yakareba zvichienderana nemari yatinopuhwa kuno kuti inenge isingakwanise kupedza makirinika aya panguva pfupi. Saka zvinotipa mukana wekugona kuronga kuti izvo maprojects atinenge tichiita sema-MPs agone kupera, uye kuti zvatinenge tichiisa kune vanhu pa7 years unogona kuzvironga. Saka tiri kutsigira nevanhu vemhuri yekwamutoko kuti aiwa, ngati 7 years dzakanaka kwatiri, tinoda kudzitsigira zvakanyanya. Mubati wechigaro, ndinoda kuti zvakare pakusarudzwa kwemutungamiriri wehurumende ngaasarudzwe mudare rino, nekuti kare tikazvitarisa even patinoita sarudzo panokonzereswa panozopedzesera pave nekupokana nekuvengana mumhuri chaimo. Vamwe vanenge vachirwira kuti toda kuti weda ahwine, uya vachirwira kuti toda kuti president weda ahwine. Saka panozopedzesera pane bongozozo. Zviri kureva kuti bongozozo rinoitika harisi kureva kuti rinokonzerwa nebato rimwe chete, asi zvinobva kumativi ese, nokuti tese tinenge chirwidzana kuti mutungamiriri wedu apinde. Saka akauya mutungamiriri tikamusarudzira muno, zvinotiitira zvakanaka. Tinenge isusu kana taakubatana tinongobatanawo tiri mupi, tiri muno, asi tasarudza mutungamiriri wani, mutungamiriri wedu muno. Tinoda kutenda mutungamiriri wehurumende, tichida kutenda honorable vedu, minister vedu nemuono wavainawo. Tinotsigira zvakanyanya bhiri irori, tiri kumashure kwaro, tiri kuti ngariende mberi, ngaripfuurire, rienderere mberi. Mhuri yemutoko iri kuritsigira. Ndinotenda mutungamiriri.
Further debate, I call upon Honorable Muringazoa.
Good morning, Madam Speaker, ma'am. And I'd like to thank you for this the opportunity you gave me to debate on the CAB 3. Now, before I go further with my debate,
point of order, Madam Speaker.
Order. What's the point of order?
According to our ratio, Honorable Speaker, it's supposed to be 2 that side, 1 that side, this side. So if now we are now having 3rd person debating from that side, while no one has been allowed to debate from this side.
Well noted. I'm just following the list. I'll rectify. Honorable Mringazo, you may proceed. I'll correct it.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, at this particular stage of this debate, Madam Speaker, I would like to point out that this debate has been going on for quite a while, and it has been debated almost exhaustively and professionally, especially, and I would say very fantastic views have come from honorable members, especially honorable members of this side of the House. And like I said, it's almost exhaustive in nature, what has happened now. And it will take a lot of creativity to come up with a new angle to this debate, considering what has been said so far by the esteemed members of this House. Now, what, however, pushes me to come here and continue to debate, despite the fact that the debate has been debated exhaustively, is the fact that the people of my own constituency of Urungwe North insisted and said, Honorable Member, you are our representative in the House, and we insist that you go to the House and you go and tell and speak before the House and tell the whole nation what we as the people of Urungwe North have told you to go and say, which is we support the bill, the constitutional amendment bill number 3 in its entirety. Before I proceed with my debate, Madam Speaker, we ought to note certain fundamentals as far as our nation of Zimbabwe is concerned. First of all, Zimbabwe is a third world country, or what we call a developing nation. 2, Zimbabwe's economy is at a stage that we call the stage of recovery. It is recovering. Now, I'll draw parallels before I go further. It's recovering from a depression that was caused by sanctions that were imposed upon us in the year of 2000 to 2002, somewhere thereabout. So as I go further, I will draw parallels.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Order. What's your point of order, Honorable James?
Madam Speaker, we've heard the sanctions bit for quite a while now. It's sometimes used as a convenient excuse, and sometimes it's used as a progressive manner that we don't need sanctions, we can rely on local investment. If the sanctions were put on the government and only the government can get them lifted.
Honorable James, may you allow Honorable Mringazuva to debate?
Madam Speaker.
Yes, our Government Chief Whip.
I expect Honorable James, but for him to pretend that we were not under sanctions and we are still under sanctions is, for me, not honorable, but irresponsible, and may bring us to think he has more reasons to why he is saying that.
Madam Speaker.
Honorable B. James, I did not acknowledge you. We will not allow you to mislead the House.
Madam Speaker, I'm not
We will
denying
not allow
that
you
there's sanctions.
not to be honest in what you'll be saying. May you please take your seat. Honorable Mringazuva, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, I'm not denying there's sanctions. It's just being used
Honorable
as an excuse.
B. James, I did not acknowledge you. It's well known that our country is still under sanctions. You may proceed.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Angareke kubuda uyu.
Iwe Trish.
My
Honorable Mringa, order. Honorable Mringazuva, you may proceed.
Point of order.
Madam.
Point of order.
Honorable Changra, I have made a ruling.
I have a point of order.
It's arising from what? I'm not tolerating that. Please, let's not disturb the process. Honorable Muringazuwa, you may proceed.
Madam Speaker, ma'am. Hands kuzakati kwatara ungone katuri kwe. Now, Madam Speaker, ma'am, they say history repeats itself. I'm going to bring the House to a certain incident in history. You see, the United States of America at one point underwent a certain period that was called the boom. That period, the American economy grew almost to unprecedented levels at that time. And then it came to a time around the 1920s, that was the time of the presidents like Calvin Coolidge and Warren Harding. It went through what was called the Depression. American industry fell, real estate fell, unemployment came to unprecedented levels, and I think we have all heard about this, the crash of 1929. America was on its knees after the boom. And then in 1933, they elected the president. His name is Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, immediately after assuming power, went through, started programs like the Tennessee Valley Association, the Public Works, whatever, and things like that. So America started recovering during that period. And because of the great works that were done at that time, Congress, for the first time in American history, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was voted for a third term. And then, during his third term, the Second World War started. And Congress decided that Franklin Delano Roosevelt could run for the fourth time. So, around 1945, when he was just beginning his fourth term, we must all know that Franklin Delano Roosevelt died of polio. He was actually ruling America from a wheelchair, and the people allowed him to do that because of the great works that he had done in as far as the recovery of the American economy is concerned. Now, I can draw parallels, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
On a point of order.
Order. What's the point of order, Honorable Ngatsuri?
Madam Speaker, ma'am, I think it is a miscarriage of justice to use an example of the former President Roosevelt, who came through to power in 1933 to 1945. He was elected then because this was law in the United States before they had passed the 22nd Amendment, which was ratified in 1951. So it's tired intellectualism to pretend and to mislead the House. The Speaker is misleading the House. I do have the history, and we know it.
Order, Honorable Ngatsuri. When you have a chance to debate, you can come up with your facts.
We are being misled.
May you allow Honorable Muringazuwa to finish his debate? Because when you do your research, you put your facts together. So may you allow him to finish his debate?
We are well aware of the history, as the Honorable Member alludes, Madam Speaker, ma'am. But we are drawing parallels. We never said our constitution with the Constitution of America is the same. No, we didn't say that. What we are saying here is the bottom line is the same. A great leader who takes a country out of, through a recovery deserves more time. This is the basic tenet of this whole argument. It's not about the American Constitution said that, the Zimbabwean Constitution said this. No. The bottom line is the man who led America from the depression to the recovery was given 4 terms. Basically, a great leader who takes a nation from a depression to a recovery needs more time to finish his programs. And the parallels that I draw with with the United States of America, Madam Speaker, ma'am, it's very simple. When you look at it, around 1939, the World War II started. And when you look at when we look today, how many wars are there? When you look at the geopolitics of this world right now, we are in a state of war, almost a third war. So the parallels, we can draw parallels from the American experience to the Zimbabwean experience, madam. Now, when His Excellency Dr. Idi Mnangagwa came into office in 2018, we all saw phenomenal growth of our economy. I mean, anybody can tell you, our GDP is quadrupled. Our, what do you call this, our economic growth is at 6% against a global average of 2.9. We are now producing 100% of our basic needs. Cooking oil, rice, you name it. We no longer import anything. Before 2018, the most fashionable thing to smuggle in Zimbabwe, the most profitable was cooking oil. Today, if you bring cooking oil in Zimbabwe, you are not going to find a single buyer who can buy your cooking oil. We are producing, you don't see any delight. The delight you see in Zimbabwe now is written made in Zimbabwe. Actually, smuggling of cooking oil is happening from Zimbabwe to Zambia. Our companies that were non-existent at that time, like for example, the Sunny Ifeng factory here in Norton is producing double the amount of tiles that SADC can consume. But before 2018, we were importing tiles from South Africa. Now, Madam Speaker, ma'am, all this phenomenal growth and what has happened has made us so distinctly aware of how much limitations are on our constitution. 5 years are not enough for a recovering economy, for a developing nation to implement all its programs. Why am I saying so, Madam Speaker, ma'am? The time we are living in a time of war. That's one. Firstly, you must understand, goods that normally take 3 months to reach Zimbabwe are now taking a year because of the blockades on the seas. Number two, madam, we are living at a time of global warming, and certain catastrophes are happening, natural catastrophes. We have such things like the El Nino-induced droughts that disturb an economy, and this cannot be controlled. We have this new, in 2023 to 2024, we had a very debilitating drought. That took almost $5 billion from our economy. And imagine what $5 billion would have done for our people in Zimbabwe. We could have built 10 highways like that one from Bedbridge to Harare. And all these natural phenomena are causing a stagnation of our development. And when we continue, we see that there is an emergence of new pandemics. We have COVID-19, took 2 years of our time. We have now this new, and these new diseases continue to come. This is the modern world. People are now fragile. Many viruses are emerging. We have heard recently of the Hanta virus, the Ebola virus, etc. So, in 5 years, the possibility of a disturbance to any trajectory is very high. We cannot assume that when a president or a member of parliament or a councillor comes into office, he's going to smooth sail through the 5 years. No. 5 years is just not enough. And I can give you examples, Madam Speaker. In my constituency, at constituency level, 3 MPs ago, which is about 3 parliaments ago, a member of parliament initiated the construction of a clinic. And then, a few years later, he lost the election.
Order. You're left with 5 minutes. May you wind up.
Okay. Two parliaments later, a parliament later, another term later, another MP came, and another MP came. And when I came as member of parliament, madam, I found that building at window level. If you go there, and then when I tried to start to resume the construction, I could not even find the plan of that building. Up to now, we can't find it. And we cannot continue with that building anymore. This is the same because this honorable member did not get enough time to implement and finish his projects. And whoever came after him started his own projects. And what I'm saying here is also true on national level. A third world country, Madam Speaker, ma'am, relies on many resources for its projects. And these resources sometimes are external. Negotiations have to be made by external financiers. Money has to be borrowed from here, from there. Just the mobilization of resources takes 3 to 4 years. 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years. Implementation, another 4 or 5 years. Before even that project is on 25% completion, we start running for elections again. And what happens when you change candidates at such in such quick rotation? No development. One of the most, I would like to debunk this. There's been some quotations from pseudo politicians or economists who claim that the quick turnaround of elections brings development, Madam Speaker. You see, the most developed nation, the highest developing nation in the world right now is China. And the president of China, Mr. Comrade Xi Jinping, he has been in office since 2012. And yet, his country is #1, even ahead of the United States of America. So, I would have wanted to debate on other issues here, Madam Speaker, but since my time is gone, I would say...
Point of order, Madam Speaker, ma'am.
What's your point of order, Honorable Matangira?
Madam, when a member is debating constructively like this, I seek extension of his time. Thank you.
I reject. I second.
Who seconds?
I object. I second.
I object.
I object.
Who object? Is there an objection?
Yes. I object.
I object. It
A second.
Objected. Honorable Matangaira, you seek for extension usually after a member of parliament is finished debating. You may proceed, Honorable Mungazwa.
Thank you, ma'am. Since my time is up, I'll just conclude by saying what inspired us as a nation to ask for an extension. It is the great works that we have seen. Madam Speaker, ma'am. And it is our wish for continuity. We need someone with the institutional memory to continue heading this recovery. I so submit.
Further debate, I call upon Honorable G.K. Stole.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity for me to debate and air the views of the people that I represent, the good people of Chitungwiza North constituency. I rise to oppose, let me make it categorically clear, to oppose this constitutional amendment number bill. I've been making personal consultations with the people from my constituents, and we've been discussing about this bill, and the general majority of the people, they are opposed to this bill. They oppose this bill because they believe it fundamentally weakens the constitutional settlement that Zimbabweans overwhelmingly voted for in 2013. The constitution is just not an ordinary act of parliament. It is the supreme expression of the people's will. It was negotiated, debated, subjected to a referendum, and endorsed by millions of Zimbabweans. Therefore, constitutional amendments must only be undertaken where there are compelling national necessity and not where there is political convenience. Madam Speaker, CAP 3 proposes extension the extending the tenure of the president, parliament, and local authorities. I ask the simple question: what national crisis requires an extension? Zimbabwe does not have a constitutional crisis that is coming from 5-year electoral cycles. Currently, the crisis that we have, especially from my constituency in Chitungwiza North, is the crisis of unemployment. It is the crisis of healthcare crisis. It is also the crisis of non-delivery, of service delivery. And we also have a crisis of water. The people of Chitungwiza North have been asking, since most members have been saying, no, there are certain projects that needs to be finished. If you remember very well, Mr. Speaker said, in November 1999, Chitungwiza North, there was a groundbreaking ceremony where there was a launch of a railway project from Harare to Chitungwiza. And it's now more than 2 decades down the line. That project hasn't been finished. So the people are asking, why would we expect the government to finish this project in 2 years when it couldn't finish it in 20 years? Then we also go to the issue of Muda Dam. There's a huge crisis of water in Chitungwiza. And Chitungwiza actually doesn't have a source of water of its own. It receives its water from Harare. And Chitungwiza people have been promised that there will be construction of Muda Dam. And this promise was done more than 2 decades ago. Up to now, the people of Chitungwiza, they actually have to get water from Harare. So they are saying they are heavily opposed to this proposal to extend the term of office of the president, parliament, and the local authorities. And in addition to that, Section 328 of the Constitution is very clear, Madam Speaker. We cannot be beneficiaries of a subject that will be debating in this House. We, members of Parliament, we cannot be discussing and debating on this very day of 12th June, saying that, no, we want to extend our own term of office. There is a conflict of interest there. So the people are saying, no, if you want to extend your term, come back to us. Then we can have in the form of a referendum. And if there is a referendum, then we can put our views so that everyone would know. And there's nothing to be afraid of. The statistics that have been released by Parliament administration shows that the consultations that were done, 99 or 95%, whichever the figure, but above 90%, people were agreeable to this CAB 3. If that is the majority that is agreeable, why shouldn't we go for a referendum so that we do what the people expect on the ground? So in Chitungwiza, the constructions of the roads and nothing is being done, and we have lost a lot of lives in Chitungwiza on that basis. Madam Speaker, let me go to the issue of traditional leaders. The people of Chitungwiza have been saying that there's no need for traditional leaders to be actively involved in politics, because these are the custodians of our culture and our traditions. So there's no point and there's no need for these leaders who should be our custodians of the culture to be deliberating and actively involved in politics. Then a villager in Binga, a farmer in Gokwe, a vendor in Bari, and a teacher in Chipinge must have the same right to choose a president as any member of parliament. The right to vote directly for one's president is not a privilege, Madam Speaker. It is a democratic right. Madam Speaker, our liberation...
Order, Honorable Stolin. What's your point of order?
The Honorable Member is debating, but this Constitution doesn't seek to deny people to vote. Or if they want to vote for the president, they can be members of parliament. Then they will come and vote for the president. So if they want to be included in the voting for the president, the simple issue is coming to parliament as MPs.
Honorable Stolle may be guided and stick to the presentation that was presented by the Honorable Minister. May you proceed?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. During the liberation struggle, Jason Ziapapa Moyo, senior leader in the liberation struggle, he fought for what was called and what is still called universal suffrage, which means every Zimbabwean citizen has a right to vote for a councillor, for an MP, and for a president. By saying that Parliament will vote for a president without the participation of every Zimbabwean, we are taking away that right from every Zimbabwean citizen. Even if you look at the liberation struggle, there was Nikita Kambarani Mangena. He actually was a respected military commander. He actually fought for one man, one vote. Even if you look at the first chairperson of ZANU-PF, Herbert Chitepo, he actually fought for one man, one vote. So the issue of one man, one vote cannot be substituted by parliament debating.
Honorable Stole.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think when we are debating, let's not conflict and get confused. When we got our independence, we got the right for everyone to vote on an equal basis. And we never had a direct presidential election until 1990. So this attempt to grandstand and link the liberation struggle to an event that happened in 1990 is very mischievous, and he must withdraw that.
Order. Honorable Stole, may you withdraw your statement?
Okay, I withdraw my statement. Okay. Then there is this issue that has been said by colleagues from the other side when they were saying if we delay elections, it helps to cut costs. In everything that we do a cost-benefit analysis. The cost of postponing elections doesn't exceed the cost of people being in public offices, spending more time without accountability. The cost of, if you look at Zimbabwean statistics in terms of illicit financial flows, in terms of corruption, Zimbabwe is losing so much. It's because we are having maybe more than 5 years without election. It means public officers will spend more time without facing accountability. And let me move on to the other issue of having 10 more senators, Madam Speaker. Currently, Parliament as it is currently constituted, we have more than 210 constituencies. We are already bloated, Madam Speaker. In my opinion, we should actually reduce the constituencies from 210 to 110, so that we do not put a burden on the taxpayers' money. The argument that we should add 10 more senators to the Senate, it only increases the number of people who gets to Parliament without the participation of the very same citizens that they are supposed to represent. And in addition, the argument that those senators will be technical persons who will be able to assist the president in appointing the cabinet, that might not work, because we already have qualified people and experience in this house. If you look at Honorable Madziwanyika, he's very experienced. He can be a finance minister. And so much honorables in this house, Madam Speaker. So, getting back to the point of traditional leaders, the Constitution deliberately insulated traditional leaders from partisan politics because the nation recognized the danger of mixing traditional authority with party politics. Madam Speaker, I further submit that the security services of Zimbabwe must continue to uphold the Constitution without fear or favor. The defense forces belong to Zimbabwe. They do not belong to a political party. They do not belong to a government of the day. They do not belong to an individual. They belong to the Republic. Professional security services are the cornerstone of every constitutional democracy. Hence, I propose and I insist that the defense forces must always be allowed to uphold the Constitution, Madam Speaker. Then the Gender Commission exists because our Constitution recognizes the equality does not happen automatically. Women continue to face barriers in politics, business, education, and employment. The Gender Commission provides constitutional oversight to ensure that gender equality becomes a reality rather than a slogan. To abolish or weaken that institution would send a wrong signal to women, girls, and future generations. It would suggest that equality is no longer a national priority. Madam Speaker, constitutional democracies across the world are built upon certain fundamental principles. These principles include periodic elections, separation of power, independent institutions, checks and balances, citizen participation, constitutional certainty. So this idea that we always would come here and try to ensure that we do these amendments without going back to the people, they shouldn't be allowed to this house. CAP 3 moves Zimbabweans away from the principles and towards greater concentration of power. The Constitution was designed to limit power, not to expand it. It was designed to protect future generations, not merely accommodate present political interests. History teaches us that nations prosper when institutions are stronger than individuals. Today we are not deciding what is convenient for politicians, we are deciding what is safe for Zimbabwe's democracy. The people of Chitungwiza are asking where the railway is. They are asking where Muda Dam is. They are asking where fresh water is. They are asking for jobs. So, Madam Speaker, in conclusion, I would want to say the people of Chitungwiza have said clearly that they do not support this bill in its entirety. Thank you.
Further debate, I call upon Honorable Dina Tiso.
Maita basa mbatu wechigaro. Ini ndakamira pano ndinobva ku Bikita West constituency, Masvingo province. Ndatumwa nevanhu voku Bikita West kuti endai munotsigira bhiri CAP 3. Ndikuda kutanga nokutsigira nyaya yekwaregistrar. Nyaya yekwaregistrar yokuti ibve kusek inde kwa registrar. Inyaya yakanaka zvikuru. Vanhu vokubhikita vari kuti paregistrar ndo kunotorwa zvitupa, ndo kunonyorwa vanozvarwa, ndo kunozikanwa kuti kana munhu ane 18 years akukwanisa kuvhota, makore ake anokwana rini, uye kana akwana zvinoita automatically kuti aiswe ku vote register. Saka vanhu vokubhikita vari kuti Bikita West vari kuti registrar ngaabate zvese. Takaona muna 2023 vanhu vanga vakarejistwa vanga vakwanisa kutotarisa mazita avo zviri nyore kana pamafoni vasingachaindi kunoita queue. Saka vekwarejistra vanokwanisa kungotora vanhu vose vane 18 years vachiziva kuti vana kufa vapenyu vachivaisa kuregista rokuvhota. Tobvapo toenda panyaya yekuwedzerwa kwemakore maviri kwa president nema MP avo nemakansela. Zvinhu zvakanaka chose kuti ma MP, makansela na president vaenderere mberi kwemakore maviri kuti maprojects aripo apere. Nokuti baba Mnangagwa mashandiro avari kuita tinoda kumatenda zvikuru. Tinoona vamwe vari kushoora havo kuti hapana zviri kuitwa. Pane mumwe mumirimiri wedare reparamende akambotaura akati mubhaibheri munotovawo kudenga uko kune vanopikisa. Nyange vamwe vanopikisa vaya mukatarisa mubhaibheri imomo zvakare, musi wakaroverwa Jesu wanga tangobva kusvinudza bofu. Bofu iroro ndo rakataura kuti chipikiri icho hachina kupinda kuna Jesu. Saka tinoti vanhu ngavave nemuono wokuona development iri kuitwa, uye kuti development haiitwi kwezuva rimwe. Tobvapo toenda panyaya yemadzimambo. Tiri panyaya yemadzimambo, madzimambo agara ndivo even munguva yehondo ndivo vaitungamira hondo. Zvese zvaiitika muhondo, even vana mukoma vachisvika munzvimbo vaiinda kumadzimambo. Madzimambo vovaudza zvokuita. Saka madzimambo agara angorimo mune zvematongerwo enyika. Uye madzimambo kutongovhota ikoko chete kunotaridza kuti munhu anenge atochuzawo munhu waanenge achida. ndisikadi kuwanza mbambo pachitewe cheshindi mubati wechigaro ndinoti naiwo aringana.
Further debate. I call upon Honorable Amauswa.
Thank you, thank you, Madam Speaker, ma'am. Sorry for that. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I'd like to thank you for this precious opportunity to air views regarding CAP 3 on behalf of the good people of Warren Park constituents, on behalf of all progressive churches and the true Christian community, and on behalf of over 10 million people.
Point of order.
Who still...
Point
Order,
of order.
Honorable Amauswa.
Madam Speaker, there are no true and false churches. They are all churches. You are not a representative of churches. You are not a God who knows which one is true and false.
Thank you. Honorable Amauswa, can you please withdraw?
Madam Speaker, ma'am,
can you please withdraw and rephrase?
Yes, I withdraw that statement, even though the Bible gives us an instruction to test the spirits. And it also says there are true and false prophets, but for the sake of progress and for the sake...
I asked you to withdraw and rephrase your statement, not for you to explain why you are withdrawing.
I withdraw, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I will rephrase. I'm also representing all churches, all the Christian community.
Point of order.
Order. What's your point of order?
uHamauswa akapresenta abantu abayi over 10 million ku constituency yakhe kapresenta abantu sokumele kulungise konoko.
Honorable Amauswa, stop misrepresenting. You may proceed.
I know people fear figures. It's fine, I withdraw, Madam Speaker, ma'am. I also stand here, Madam Speaker, ma'am, on behalf of all the people of Zimbabwe who hold on to the words of the illustrious son who came to be known as the father of democracy.
Order. Honorable Amauswa, order. What's your point of order?
My point of order ndeyekuti hatigoni kuenderera mberi kana honorable member vachinyepa muno muhouse makazara vanhu.
Honorable Amauswa, may you be factual.
Madam Speaker, ma'am, I did not even finish my statement. I said to all those in Zimbabwe who believe
Point of
the
order.
words of one of the illustrious
Point of
sons
order.
of this country, President, the former Prime Minister,
Point of order.
Tsvangirai, who said that one day Zimbabwe is going to be democratically free. And he actually vowed that he was going to soldier on until Zimbabwe is democratically free. Madam Speaker, ma'am,
point of order.
Ngatisendere Honorable Amauswa mbodebata Honorable.
Ndizvo zvandinoda kutaura, Madam Speaker.
Chigara
Tichikoti mapoint of order from that side. Debate
Chigara ipasi,
vachiripo vakati wandei. Tikazotanga point of order tiri kunoko debate harifamba.
Gara ipasi.
Ndazvinzwa maita basa. Iko zvino zvimakadaro tofumuka.
Madam Speaker, ma'am, I thank you and I stand guided by your wisdom. I was saying that I am representing the people, a section of the people of Zimbabwe who believe to the words of one of the illustrious sons of this country, the former Prime Minister Richard Morgan Tsvangirai, who vowed that one day Zimbabwe will be democratically free. In advancing this dream, I stand here to move that this bill be in advancing this dream, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I stand here to move that this bill be rejected in total. The movers of this... Speaker, ma'am, we have also the capacity to match their capacity to frustrate us with the capacity.
Order, Honorable
and
Amauswa, can you please stick to your debate?
We may also retaliate and it will
Honorable
not be done.
Amauswa, that's not part of the debate. Can you
No,
stick to
but
the presentation that was made by the
they don't
Honorable
need to
Minister?
do that. I
May you
was seated
debate?
here. I never interrupted anyone. And this is not their country. We all belong to the same country. This is the reason why we are rejecting this bill.
Order, Honorable
This is the
Amauswa.
reason why we say this bill does not promote equality. The way we are being treated here, it's pathetic. Is this the parliament that is going to elect the president? A parliament without order.
Order, Honorable Amauswa.
Can disrupt.
Order, Honorable Amauswa. Honorable Amauswa, may you stick to your debate?
This is part of the debate, Madam Speaker, ma'am, where we cry for Zimbabwe. One day, Madam Speaker, ma'am, this nation, the history of this nation will be written. And it will keep a page for the 10th parliament. Every name recorded in this house will be on that page. Our children will read it, and their children after them. And they will ask of us one question, Madam Speaker, ma'am. That history asks everyone who has ever held power in this land, what did they do when it mattered? This is the time when it most mattered to Zimbabwe, Madam Speaker, ma'am. We already know to answer that question for those who went before us. When we remember Mbuyane Handa, Madam Speaker, ma'am, we know what she is remembered for. When we say Sekuru Kaguvi, we say, when we say of Chaminuka, when we say of Ebet Chitepo, we know what they stood for. Madam Speaker, ma'am, I stand where I stood to fight for democratic equality in this country. We all know how in 2017, generals like S.B. Moyo, Perez Shiri Mugova put their lives on line to restore legacy in this country. We remember the late Richard Morgan Tsvangirai as a general for the democratic struggle. They are remembered because in their hour they refused to surrender the right of these people to govern themselves. Some of them face that refusal through their lives.
Honorable Amauswa, what's the point of order, Honorable Minister?
Madam Speaker, I think we all know the history. We are here to debate the bill, not to speak about Mbuyane Handa, about he must stick to the bill. If he has nothing to debate, I think you must rule on that. Because we are not getting anything out of what he's saying. There is absolutely nothing that will edify or what will you get from what he has said so far. So if he has nothing to debate, we might as well sit down. He must stick to the content of the bill so that we progress, rather than you realize and say nothing.
Honorable Amauswa, we have a list of people who want to debate. So if you don't have anything to say, we'll ask.
People are referencing Americans here.
May you stick to the presentation that was made by the Honorable Minister of Justice.
Madam
May
Speaker,
you speak
Madam
to the
Speaker,
debate.
ma'am, I thank you and I stand guided by your wisdom. I will not stand here to respond to the Honorable Minister. The Hansard will respond on my behalf. Because everyone
You can't respond to the minister. May you stick to the debate. If you don't have anything to debate, I'll ask you to sit down, Honorable Amauswa. We have other MPs who want to contribute to this, towards this important debate.
Okay, Madam Speaker, ma'am, I stand guided. Madam Speaker, ma'am, this bill does the following. It takes away the election of the president away from the people and gives it to this house. It lengthens the term of office from 5 years to 7 years. It switches off the very provision for the people who wrote to stop a sitting office holder from extending his own time in power. It removes from our defense forces the written duty to uphold this constitution. It takes the registration of voters away from an independent commission and hands it to an office of the government, an office controlled by the executive. It abolishes the Gender Commission and the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. It does and it does every one of these things without going back to the people in a referendum to ask their leave. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the
Madam
Constitution is the supreme
Order.
Point of order.
What's the point of order, Honorable Minister?
Madam Speaker, this bill is not abolishing the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission. You must withdraw that statement.
Madam Speaker, ma'am, I withdraw that. This bill does not remove the peace and reconciliation. I implore Minister to consider giving it a new life. Madam Speaker, ma'am, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Section 2, subsection 1 of the Constitution says that this Constitution is the supreme law of Zimbabwe, and any law, practice, custom, and conduct inconsistent with it is invalid to the extent of inconsistency. In addressing this issue, Professor Lavmo Maduku, 2010, said that the reason why the Constitution is given this special place in the hierarchy of laws is that, in principle, it is considered to be the word of the people themselves. This underlines the importance of a referendum. Cap 3 is against the principle of constitutionalism.
Point of order.
Order. Honorable Amauswa. What's the point of order,
Honorable
Honorable
Amauswa, I don't want to
Cabinet Chief?
distract you, but what I want to check, which Professor Maduku, the politician or the lawyer, which one is he talking about? Because
Madam Speaker, ma'am.
You are looking for a needle from a haystack.
May you clarify?
Madam Speaker, ma'am, the moment I say Professor Madugu, I'm talking to a lecture room at an university. This is in this book. No, you can check on his book if that is unnecessary, and I don't think the caliber of the government chief will continue doing that. Cap 3 is against the principle of constitutionalism. Walsh of 2007 notes that constitutionalism is an idea often associated with the political theories of John Locke and the founders of American Republic, that government should be legally limited in its powers and that its authority depends on observing these limitations. This means government is a creature of the Constitution. It is below the Constitution and not above it. John Locke is well-known for advancing his own version of social contract, where they say social contract is an escape route from the state of nature and to a civilized society. The state of nature, according to John Locke, was characterized by unpredictability of laws, chaos, and lack of judicial independence. Thomas Hobbes stated that the state of nature was characterized by war of every man against every man, and life was nasty, short, and brutish. And this is exactly what was depicted by the minister, to say there was toxicity. Toxicity, I would want to refer it to a situation that is in the state of nature. And I propose, Madam Speaker, ma'am, that allegations of rigging will characterize the electoral cycles in this country. Electoral violence was also there. As a result, Madam, even on the economic front, there have been allegations of policy inconsistencies, where we have policies like Zim Asset, indigenization law that have been changed midway without being implemented. So the social contract theorists advise that the route from chaos to a normal civilized state is through dialogue, not nefarious change of governing structures or the use of lawfare to tilt the power matrix, as is going to happen in Senate, where currently we know without the vote from the opposition, the ruling party will not have two-thirds majority. If it means that if that vote is used wisely, this bill is not going to pass. But once the bill is passed, the president is going to have an unfair and authoritarian advantage to actually control both houses. And this should not be allowed. If it was going to be suspended, maybe until after an election. So we cannot have a situation where a sitting president will then change a law that will then tilt the power matrix in the Senate. According to Greg Linington, 2001, constitutions are generally difficult to change, and the fundamental constitutional principles are placed beyond simple majority.
Order. You are left with 5 minutes.
This led to the principle called counter-majoritarian rule. An American scholar, Stephen Holmes, writing in support of the counter-majoritarian position, states that basic function of a constitution is to remove certain basic function of a constitution from democratic processes, that it ties the community's hands. This is to withdraw certain subjects from political controllers, as to place beyond reach of simple majorities, as to establish, for instance, the amendment of the right to vote, to elect the president. Historically, Madam Speaker, ma'am, Zimbabwean courts have ruled that the constitution gives them power to determine in the event of litigation whether parliament had acted within the provisions of the constitution when enacting the law concerned. Courts can set aside and invalidate any legislation enacted by the parliament if correct procedures were not followed. The Supreme Court explained this position in the case of Smith versus Mutasa. And another, this was in relation to the former Rhodesian Prime Minister Ian Smith, that in 1989 the parliament had suspended him without salary for making remarks that were considered as contempt of parliament. Dumbuchena CJ then said the constitution of Zimbabwe is the supreme law of the land. It is true that parliament is the supreme in legislative field as assigned to it by the constitution, but even the parliament cannot step outside the bounds of the authority prescribed to it by the constitution. The learned Chief Justice, according to Lincoln, stated that Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy. It is not a parliamentary democracy. In a constitutional democracy, both parliament and the executive are creatures of the constitution. Therefore, they can only do that, they can only do what they are prescribed to do by the constitution. Madam Speaker, ma'am, on the passionate plea for a referendum, I would like to encourage the Minister of Justice to consider the essential features doctrine. I would like to refer this House to the words of the then Chief Justice Gabe, who considered the application of essential features doctrine to Zimbabwe.
Honorable Amoswa. Order. Oh, what's a point of order, Honorable Minister?
Madam Speaker, the honorable member rightly pointed out that we are supposed to be guided by the Constitution. He must show me where in the Constitution we are supposed to go to the referendum. We don't need to be told what a scholar said. He must tell me what the Constitution says and what the bill is doing that is violating that provision.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Amoswa, don't create your own constitution.
Okay.
And your time is up. Further debates, Honorable
Point of
Manasa.
order. Point of order.
What's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, ma'am. Ndichikumbiro ka 5 minutes dzekuti
No.
Honorable Amoswa vakwanise kutsanangura zvabvunzwa na minister.
I second, Madam.
Objection.
No objection.
Who seconds?
I second.
Is there an objection?
Objection.
Objection.
It has been objected. Honorable Mananja, you may take the floor.
Maita basa mbato echigaro nekuti panguva yekuti ndiwedzerewo izwi pamusoro pe bill number 3. Ini zita rangu ndinonzi kuda kwashe Mananja, ndiri mumiririri wezvimba East constituency inosanganisa pano pamakagara panapa. Neimwe nzira mese mashanya kuuya kumusha kwangu. Saka ndakatenderera muconstituency yezvimba East, uyezve tikaonawo vazhinji nevazhinji vaiunza ma-written submission pano sa-MP wenzvimbo. Madam Speaker, constituency kwandobva vari kubvumirana
Speaker, I have a point of order. The honorable member who is speaking came through a back door.
Order. Honorable Amoswa, I did not acknowledge you.
No. Madam.
Honorable Amoswa. Order. I'm not going to acknowledge him anymore because I had not acknowledged them. Honorable Amoswa, you're out of order. Honorable Mananja, you may proceed.
maita basa mubati wechigaro ndakamboita mufundisi kuchechi, saka pandaitaura vanhu vaimanifesta, mukaona vari kutaura vari kutobuda mweya wakaipa. Madam Speaker, ndasumuka kuti ndiso mashoko angu mashoma ekutsinira. Madam Speaker, ndataura kuti ndakaonana nevanhu vakawanda muconstituency nevazhinji vakauya pano vachiisa written submissions, vazhinji ndakavaona, ndakasangana nezvikwata zvakawanda, ndichataura zvishoma shoma. Ndakasangana nemapostori akanditaurira kuti Cape 3 ishepiriona iri kuenda mugungwa, saka Cape 3 iri kuenda kunoita kuti nyika inake. Ndakasangana nevarwi vehondo vakarwira nyika ino, vakandiudza kuti mwana pakafomwa political party 1963 pane varume
You cannot allow him to continue. I was disallowed to speak.
Honorable Amauswa.
Ndarambidzwa kutaura history muno.
Honorable Amauswa, you are disturbing. Honorable Amauswa, you are disturbing the session. I'm going to ask you to leave the house. Honorable Amauswa, I'm going to ask you to leave the house if you continue to disturb the session. Honorable Mananja, you may proceed.
Yeah, zvandambotaura zviya ndozviri kuitika. Pakafomwa nyaya yekutora nyika ino.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order. Honorable Mananja, vanachavati vataura, dombira mugare pasi.
Point of order.
Dombira mugare pasi, muri
Point
kudisturb
of
session.
order. Point of order.
Arising from what?
Patanga tichiterera debate rese ndambosumuka pano ndikati nyaya yekusumuka tichiita mapoint of order iyi ichakanganisa debate kuti riende mberi. Iko zvino izvi vamanhanzva vari kutaura kuti pandinotaura vanhu vari manifesta vanhu vakaisa mapoint of order obati ndo zvandambotaura zviya kuzvidzana nekutukana kwakadaro vachitiza nekuti shepriona hazvina kunaka mimba ino, zvinokanganisa kufamba kwedebate. Endewo tinokumbirawo kuti kana tichidhibheta tidhibhete murusungunuko kwete kuti tine utungamiriri wokuti unenge uchitoresponda
Tazvinzwa, chigarai pasi. Honorable Mananja, you may proceed.
Mazvita, Madam Speaker. Ndandichitaura nyaya yekuti pavambwa nyaya yekusunungura nyika yedu pane mavara akanyorwa pabato randobva anoti Unity, Peace and Development. Aiva mavara echiprofita, kwaizikanwa kuti kune nguva yatichataura nyaya yedevelopment. Sei ndichitaura kudai, Madam Speaker, nyaya yema-amendments haina kutanga nhasi. Tina amendment number 7 yakaitwa paLongest House Constitution yakaitwa 1987. Amendment number 7 yakanga iri yeku-unity, yakazvara unity accord yaane zuva ratinoti Unity Day, kureva kuti nguva nenguva patinofamba zvichienderana nekufamba kwatinenge tichiita tinoita maamendment anoenderana nezvatinenge tichiona kuti nyika yoenda kupi. Madam Speaker, taakuda kutora ivhu redu takaita imwe amendment number 17 yakaita kuti tizonokwanisa kutora land yedu. Iko zvino zvipatave nenyaya yedevelopment tinotoda amendment kuti nyika yedu tisvike pakuti nyika yedu yabudirira ende nyika yedu yapfuurira mberi. Ngazvisashamise nhasi kuti kwakuitwa maamendments iwo agara achiitwa kumashure kweso. Maamendment agara ariko ende agara achiitwa. Saka ini ndasumuka panapa, Madam Speaker, ndichinyanya kusapota kuti amendment idzi dzakanaka. Ende ndichataura zvishoma shoma, maclose mashoma shoma, ndoda nditaure pano ndogara pasi nekuti zvizhinji zvanguri zvataurwa. Madam Speaker, ndoda kutaura nyaya yevoters roll. Munhu achizvarwa anopuwa birth naregistrar, opuwa chitupa, akafunga kubuda kunze kwenyika opuwa passport, kunyangwe akafa anopuwa death certificate naregistrar. Saka tinofunga kuti voters roll ikaendeswa kwaregistrar zvinoita kuti zvive automatic kuti munhu achingosvika 18 years akutopinda muvoters roll, kwete kupa vamwe vanozoita kutsvaga kana kuti vasingazoziva kuti munhu wakaisa muvoters roll akashaya. ipapo ndinosapota kuti voters roll iende kwa registrar. Madam Speaker, ndoda kusapota clause iri kutaura kuti ma MPs avhotere parliament. Kubato randobva president vanosarudzwa kunonzi kucongress. Havasarudzwe nemunhu wese. Ende mungazvicherechedza hurumende yedu inopuhwa inobzvarwa nemapato. Saka kudivi kuno isu takagara kunoku takazvarwa nebato riri kutonga People's Party inonzi ZANU-PF. Iyoyo kana tonosarudza president tunoenda kucongress. Hatiti one man munhu wese masere ese ngaavhoti. Kune vanoenda kucongress. Saka tikubvumirana nazvo kuti president vasarudzwe muno. Saka tikada kuteedzera vasina vanovasarudza, vasina structure, hatina kwatenge tichienda, Madam Speaker. Ende tichiteedzera zviri kuitwa nedzimwe nyika, vatinoti ma-champions of democracy vacho vanotosarudza masarudziro kwatava kuenda ikoko. Saka hatidi kuti tiswere tichiteerera zvinhu zvisina maturo. Toteerera shiri dzisina matendere, haiwa izvozvo hazviite.
Point of order.
Honorable, you have been disturbing the session. Order, I did not acknowledge you. May you sit down. Honorable Manandra, may you proceed.
Madam Chair.
Honorable Matswani,
Madam Chair, Madam Chair,
the session.
Ichokwadi.
It's true.
Kupakura kwenye kusifi.
Honorable Matsanika, may you withdraw your statement? Order, Honorable Matsanika, may you withdraw your statement? Honorable Matsanika, may you leave the house? Honorable Matsanika, may you leave the house? May you leave the house, Honorable Matsanika? Honorable Matsanika, may you leave the house?
I will leave the house, but
Honorable Matswanika, leave the house. Honorable Manager, you may proceed.
Point of order. Point of order.
Honorable, let's not disturb the session. May you allow Honorable Manager to finish his debate?
I'm rising on a point of order.
May you allow Honorable Manager to finish his debate?
Honorable Speaker, kana tasimudza point of order avachakwanisi kuenderera nedebate kusvika magadzirisa mapa mutongo pane
Honorable Manager, you may take a seat. What's your point of order?
Maita basa mubato wechigaro. Dambudziko riri kuitika pana Honorable Manager ndeyekuti vari kushandisa language yekuinsider yekusvora zvinova zvinhu zvamagara manga muchimborambidza panga pachitaura Honorable Hamauswa. For example, vari kuti hatingaswere tichiteerera zvisina maturo. Zvazvinoreva ndezvekuti mamembers ari kuno zvavari kutaura hazvina maturo.
Order. Honorable Manager, vana wavataura kuti uyu.
Madam Speaker,
Manager, may you stick to your debate?
Honorable Speaker, point of order.
Bochangirai, you are not disturbing, and you have been doing that. It's arising from what I've made a ruling, from what Honorable
Speaker.
I'm not giving you the point of order. I've made a ruling already. May you allow Honorable Manager to proceed? Honorable Manager, may you debate?
Maita basa mubato wechigaro. Ndichipedzisa mubato wechigaro. Rega ndiende kushoko raMwari Hebrews 7. 18 and 19. Nditendere ndiverenge nechirungu. The old rule then is set aside because it is weak and useless. For the law of Moses could not make anything perfect. And now a better hope has been provided through which we will come near God. Madam Speaker, mutemo wekare taakuisa pasaidi nekuti taona kuti hatina kwatiri kuenda nawo. Zvakanaka zvaakuuya, saka taona zvakakodzera kuti kebhu iyi nekuri kuenda vision yenyika yedu hatingati izvezvizvi Madam Speaker 5 years ichokwadi ishoma nekuti 2 years ndedzevamwe kuramba kuti handau dyiwa dzekurwa kubva kwatinobva kungave kuma pati kwedu neku-opposition 2 years idzodzo hadzina development. Gore rimwe chete ndore kushanda pasara 2 years wakatogara muno muparliament kunenge kwane candidate kumusha. Saka ndoda kutenda minister vakaunza bhiri iri muno kuti tabva tapinda pa7 years idzo dzakaitwa naJehovha achisika nyika tobva tangoita complete zvareva kuti chirevo chaMwari chazadziswa.
Point of order.
Madam Speaker, ndoda kupedzisa nenyaya yemadzishe.
Point of order.
Order, Honorable Makumire, let's not step. Dobra mugare pasi. Honorable Mananja, you may continue.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Makumire, let's not disturb.
Madam Speaker,
Let's not disturb. May you take your seat?
I am guided by the standing rules.
Garai pasi, Honorable Makumire. Honorable Mananja, you may proceed.
I have a point of order, Madam Speaker. Allow me to raise my point of order.
Honorable Makumire, ndati garai pasi.
I am guided.
Musangoda kudisturb session every time.
By the standing rules and orders of this house.
Garai pasi.
We must be bound by the green.
Ndinda kuudza yekuti garai pasi. I'm the chair.
No, you cannot change the rules.
Don't abuse power.
Another speaker. Honorable Mananja, you may proceed.
Point of order. Mazvita mbate chigaro.
Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Tenda nekuti
point of order yangu, Madam Speaker, ndekuti
Machowa out of order because I never acknowledged you, Honorable Makumire. May you take your seat? And nakukutendera yekutaura. Garai pasi. Honorable Makumire, garai pasi.
Must not. We must
Honorable
allow
Manager, you may
heresies to be
proceed.
preached in this house.
Kamera inamba kutarisa kana waifuza kuita zvepakamera hapana.
He must withdraw.
Honorable Makumire, garai pasi. Honorable Manager, you may proceed.
Mazvita mbate echigaro. Ndakupedzisa ndichitaura close 21 yemadzishe. Panhoroondo yenyika yedu ini kumusha kwandinobva ndiri mwana wamambo. Panhoroondo yenyika yedu tinozviziva kuti kuuya kwaita varungu muno ndibvumbamirewo Madam Speaker kuvanhu vari kumanifesta.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order. May you allow Honorable Manager to be heard in silence?
Point of order. Musha uno unochengetedzwa negreen book ndiwo rimwe chete rinofanira kuti ndine point of order ndokumbira kunzwipa.
Order, Honorable Manager. What's your point of order?
Zvechokwadi munoda kuti tinyarare here tichiti tikataura zvechokwadi munoda kuti tinyarare tichinzi tikataura tinonzi tiri kumanifesta. Inzwai vakuru vebhiri vacho tavingei pano izvezvi tarisai muone munotedza kunyararidza vanhu asi kana tikataura motizvoni tibude panze. Tongere enyu che tonge
matangira nda violence.
Yeah, I've gotten your point. You may take your seat. Honorable Mananja. Chiti gaga mchibuditsa donjo renyu.
All right, mazvita Madam Speaker.
You are left with 5 minutes.
Madam Speaker, vabvira kare ndinoshuvira kuti vadzobamedze mashoko avo. Munoona kuti chaita kuti debate.
You are now disturbing. No one acknowledged you. You are just talking.
Because avasati vamedze.
That's being unhonorable. You know, when you want to say something, you raise a point of order. You can't just speak without being acknowledged by the chair.
The way you are
order. Honorable Manandra, you are left with 5 minutes. May you wind up.
Mazviita mubato wechigaro. Ndichitanga debate ndambotaura kuti ini ndini muridzi wepano paparliament. Zvakanaka kuremekedza varidzi vemusha kana washanya. Madam Speaker, ndanga ndichitaura nyaya yemadzishe. Ini vasekuru vangu vamashonga nyika vakachekwa musoro nevarungu kuenda kuLondon. Vairwira nyika ino. Vairwira kuti vasatorerwe nyika. Nhasi tatora independence taane kuzvitonga kuzere. Toti madzishe musataure nyaya yenyika. Iwe musore mamwe madzimambo eri kuLondon. Izvozvo ndinoona zvisiri fair, Madam Speaker.
Point of order. Point of order.
Order. What's your point of order, Honorable Shaiba?
Maita basa mubati wechigaro. Honorable. Honorable member, vari kutaura nyaya yekuti ndo muridzi wepanapa. Asi nyaya ya kana vakutora makuponi vari kuti ndinobva kure vachitora 12 munhu wepana anotora mangani.
Honorable Shaiba, no, let's be serious. Honorable Manandra, you may proceed.
Fact.
Maita basa, Honorable Fawcett. Tinotenda mubato wechigaro. Ndakupedzisa ndichiti tinoda chaizvo kuti panotaurwa nyaya dzenyika yedu, panogarwa matare enyika yedu, panoitwa zvematongerwo enyika, madzimambo asadzvinyirirwe, vavewo semunhu ane kodzero dzake kuti ange achipinda mune zvematongerwo enyika. Hazvitibatsire kuti tinotaura kuti mambo aite zvematongerwo enyika. Iwewe kana uri MP uri munhu, kana wavhoterwa wakudzokera kuconstituency uri MP wemunhu wese. President chaivo vanobva kubato rezvematongerwo enyika, asi kana vapresident wemunhu wese. Saka bhachi iroro mapfekera unongoita uri MP muno, mambo anogona kuzviita futi. Hapana chakasiyana MP ari muno, unless muchititaurira kuti ma-MP ari muno kana vakudzokera vama-MP bato ravo chete kuma-constituency. Saka ndinokutendai mubato wechigaro nenguva yamandipa. Thank you very much.
Further debate. I call upon Honorable Msweshiri.
Maita basa mubato wechigaro maswera sei. Chekutanga ndinoda kukumbira kuchengetedzwa nekuti pano pasumuka muprofiti mashayo mazhinji angadoni. Ndinoda kutanga nekutenda minista wedu negwaro rawakauya naro Cape 3. Ndinoda kuritsigira zvikuru ndiine mashoko andatumirwa kubva kumudzi. Kumudzi uko ndine zvigaro zvinoti wandei chinobata mashisti yose. Saka ndakamirira mashisti yose ndichimirira zvakare mudzi north. Vagari vekumudzi north vandituma vachiti enda unotaura uchiti zvatakakutuma zviye kuti Cape 3 bhozve kuti. Vagari vekumudzi north uye mashi east vari kufara nebasa guru riri kuitwa nemutungamiri wenyika vanoyo president wedu Dr. Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa avo vatakapiwa naMwari. Mashawa yakutaura manje. Mubato wechigaro ndinoshamisika zvikuru nemumwe munhu anoramba achiti nguru handidye asi muto wacho ndinomwa. Bhiri iri ranakira munhu wese nekuti riri kubatsira kunyange vari kuita sevari kuripikisa mumakoridhomo vari kurifarira. Ndinoda kubata extension yeterm kubva mu5 years kusvika mu7 years. Iyo iri kupa kuti budiriro mukati menyika ioneke nekuti kune vazhinji vakanga vachirwisana kubvira mukubva kwema elections. Vandaikwikwidzana nawo rombo rakanaka nderekuti kwedu vanoziva zvinodiwa nevanhu. Ndakawana 99.2% kuma elections saka havagoni kukurisa. Kune vakauya vachiteera zvebhiriri tatina vanopikisa vashoma zvichireva kuti bhiriro rirasapotwa nemunhu wese kumashisti uye mumudzi north. Ndinoda kutsigira kuti president asharudzwe nevamiriri veparamende. Isu takasharudzwa nevanhu vemumaconstituency medu. Kumudzi north vakataura vachiti iwe ndiwe watakatuma kuti enda unotimiririra. Zvino tinotarisira kuti zvese zvauchanotaura ikoko ndo zvatinenge takutuma. Vane zvizhinji zvavakandituma maererano nemadevelopments anodiwa muconstituency. Zvibhorani nekugadzirwa kwemigwagwa vari kuratidza kufara nazvo. Ndosaka vari kusimbisa vachiti kunyangwe pakusharudzwa kwapresident takavimba newe uye tinomira newe, chienda unotaura uchiti tiri kusapota bhiri. Handidi kutambisa nguva yakareba asi ndinoda kutaura pekupedzisira pari kutaura nemadzishe kuti aitwe apinde mune zvematongerwo enyika. Handioni chakaipa pazviri nekuti ivo ndo vanotsigira basa redu, ndo vanotsigira nyika ino, ndo varidzi vevhu. Saka kana vachinge vamira nesu, iye ndiye anoziva kuti ndiri kuda zvipi asi anoziva kwaanobva. Vanhu vandiri kumirira madhimoni aya akutaura zvino maita basa mubato wechigaro. Ndatenda.